When I married Jerry, I was lucky to inherit some property from my grandparents. They suggested I use it to secure our future but advised me to keep it a secret, even from Jerry. They thought it was wise to have some income that only I knew about, ensuring I would always be financially secure. Unfortunately, Jerry often crosses boundaries with possessions and finances. For example, he has tried to give away gifts from my parents to his parents to make himself look good. This upset me, especially when he reacted badly when confronted. Recently, a big issue arose. I discovered that $22,000 had been taken from an account meant for our living expenses. This account was supposed to support the income Jerry contributed. I didn't remember making such a large withdrawal, so I concluded that Jerry must have taken the money. When I asked him about it, he admitted he had lent the money to his mother, Kayla, without my knowledge. This was shocking because it showed a lack of communication and respect for our financial decisions. It made me rethink our relationship. If our marriage can't be built on mutual respect and honesty, especially about finances, we might need to consider our future together. The idea that one spouse can take what the other has without discussing it isn't sustainable. If this approach remains, we might have to consider separating. It's okay, I suppose. The money was mine that I earned. We have some savings, so the loss shouldn't be too bad. If Kayla was in trouble, I understand the need to help, but a simple conversation with me would have been appreciated. The account is ours after all. If Jerry had taken the money from a personal account he set up before we married, I would have minded, but not as much. Taking such a large amount from our shared account without discussion felt like a breach of trust. When I expressed my disappointment, Jerry was dismissive. He frowned, irritated, and reluctantly promised to inform me next time before taking such actions. He then quickly excused himself to the bathroom. This left me feeling uneasy. It wasn't like the early days of our marriage when Jerry would listen sincerely and value my input. Is this what change looks like in a marriage? A few days later, I went to my in-laws' home to deliver a package mistakenly sent to our address. My mother-in-law, Amy, greeted me warmly and invited me in for tea. I accepted, even though I just wanted to leave the package. While there, I noticed several luxurious items around their house: expensive cosmetics, stylish clothing, and various health products. Amy casually mentioned that these were gifts from Jerry. I realized that the $22,000 had been spent extravagantly. The casual way this spending was treated made me question not only our financial partnership, but also the respect and communication in our marriage. When I found out that Jerry had lent the money to his mother because she was in need, I tried to understand. However, seeing that the funds were spent on luxury items didn't sit well with me. As I sat quietly sipping my tea, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. My in-laws' smiles faded, and they looked at me with a mix of fear and accusation. "My son is such a wonderful, generous boy, always buying gifts for me," my mother-in-law started, her tone turning confrontational. "But what about you? As his wife, are you taking good care of my wonderful son? There seems to be some trouble. I hear he mentioned getting a lot of blame from you for using the money to help me." It became clear that Jerry had made himself look like a victim to his parents, a good son just helping his mother. This revelation exhausted my patience with my in-laws and with Jerry. I had never expected such a lack of support and understanding in my marriage, making me seriously consider divorce. I started imagining a future where, after a divorce, I would move back to my parents' home, a two-story house over 32 years old, designed before my brother was born. It used to house our family of 5 comfortably, but now stood largely empty and was becoming impractical for my aging parents, who struggled with mobility. The house had some modifications, like handrails, but its spacious layout was hard for them to navigate. A one-story house would be much better for them. With my financial security from the inherited property, I could rebuild their home to be more comfortable and accessible. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to discuss my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their house. Surprisingly, my parents weren't shocked by the news. Their reaction only solidified my decision, as it seemed they too understood the need for a change, supporting my desire to start anew and build a better environment for our family. The news of rebuilding their home brought genuine joy to my parents. Over the phone, I could sense their happiness as they thanked me. "I'm glad that you're planning to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said. They reassured me that even if they couldn't live there for long, it wouldn't be a problem, as I could eventually take over the house since it was funded by my income. "Well then, I'll start preparing and planning it bit by bit," I replied, encouraged by their support. "Take it easy, just don't overdo it," they advised, their words lifting my spirits instantly. As I began organizing the rebuild of my parents' house, I awaited a response from the construction company. However, before any progress was made, Jerry confronted me aggressively. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me anything about it?" he accused as we sat across from each other at the living room table. He banged his fist on the table, his voice rising without any regard for my feelings. "Well, my parents will live in the new house. I firmly stated that it was impossible because the house was meant for my parents. Jerry roared, insisting that since the house was built with what he thought was our shared property, his parents had a right to live in it too. "Are you planning to cram 5 people into that little one-story house? Just give me the house then," Jerry demanded, hitting the table louder. Worried about his reaction if he discovered the passive income I had kept secret, I decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. "To tell you the truth, I have passive income," I confessed. "I've been saving from the real estate gifted to me by my grandparents. I've paid for the rebuild with that passive income, so I didn't take a penny out of our common property." Feeling guilty for breaking a promise to my grandparents to keep this a secret, I watched as Jerry's reaction grew even more intense. He shook with anger and pounded the table harder. "What a bad wife you are, hiding the fact that you have an income. You play around with my money and protect your own by keeping secrets." His words stung, but they also clarified the deep issues in our marriage, issues of trust, respect, and shared goals, all of which seemed increasingly insurmountable. Seeing Jerry's face flush with rage, I suddenly grasped why my grandparents had advised me to keep my passive income a secret. Perhaps they had seen something in Jerry that I hadn't recognized until now. "I'll take the house as a lemony. Besides, any house you build while we're married is mine too. I am the head of the family, and if you disobey me, I will divorce you," he declared arrogantly. I was overwhelmed with dismay. How had I spent so many years with a man who could so easily disregard my feelings and contributions? Initially, I had planned to use the passive income for our future, especially if Jerry's earnings were insufficient, or if I was unable to work due to injury or illness. It was meant to be a safety net to support both of us, something I intended to share with him when the time was right. But now I no longer wished to use that money on him. Fed up, I stood up and left the house, needing space from the stifling atmosphere. I spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and plan my next steps. Upon returning home the next morning, Jerry was waiting with a sly, unsettling smile. He approached me smirking and presented a sheet of paper he had been hiding. It was a set of divorce papers already filled out. "You're lying about your passive income, aren't you? You lied about it to hide that you were taking money from our shared property, didn't you?" he accused. His accusations were baseless and repetitive. Even though I was telling the truth and actually had passive income, he refused to believe me. "It's the truth. I have passive income," I insisted, but he wouldn't listen. Jerry's inability to trust and respect me was the last straw, making it clear that this marriage couldn't provide the support or partnership I needed. The next steps of legally separating our lives seemed unavoidable. Jerry shoved the divorce papers into my hand with a smirk and said, "You'll let me know when we can move in, okay?" He then patted me on the shoulder, walked out the door humming, and mentioned he was going out for a drink. At that moment, I saw who Jerry really was. Throughout our marriage, he had hidden his contempt for me, never truly valuing my feelings or perspectives. This realization hurt, but also set me free. I didn't waste any time. I packed up my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left our home right away. I moved in with my parents for now and explained everything to them. We agreed that I would stay with them until my new house was ready. The next day, my phone was filled with missed calls from Jerry, and he called again. I answered, hoping this would be our last conversation. "Hello." "Hey, all your stuff is gone, you know," he said, sounding confused and impatient. Why was he so worried? He was the one who wanted the divorce. "We're getting a divorce, so it's normal that I won't be coming back. Feel free to use the empty space however you like," I told him, trying to make my point clear. There was a pause. Maybe at that moment, Jerry realized I had income he couldn't control. Then, in a surprisingly sweet tone I had never heard before, he asked, "Can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't mind living with your parents, please." I was shocked. "I already told you it's a small one-story house," I reminded him. "It's meant as a surprise for my parents." His suggestion was ridiculous. He was trying to give away a house he didn't buy and acted like it was his to give. His disregard for the truth was puzzling. "You don't care about the savings, do you? You have no idea how much I worried about the money I gave you and what I saved for our living expenses," he continued. This conversation just confirmed my decision. Jerry's understanding of our finances and relationship was completely off. It was clear that moving forward without him was not just a choice but a necessity. As I tried to explain the effort I had put into managing our finances and making ends meet, he ignored the significance of my struggles. "That has nothing to do with what's happening here. You're just careless with money and leave all the hassle to others. And you act like you did everything yourself for your parents, right?" I confronted him, pointing out how he often took credit for my hard work. Jerry's sudden silence only added to my frustration. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything and wanted to give the house I built for my parents to his own family, using my honesty to impress them. It was shallow and deceitful. "In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my kindness and claim my property." There's no way to justify you trampling on my feelings and intentions like this. I won't give you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off, I said firmly, rejecting his request outright. Jerry got louder, maybe out of desperation. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll tell everyone that you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, are we? We're strangers now since I've already filed for divorce, I reminded him, making it clear that the boundaries had to be respected. On the day Jerry gave me the divorce papers, I submitted them to the city office right away. He had been the one pushing for the divorce, but when it became real, he seemed shocked. Yeah, you already filed it. Why are you surprised when you're the one who wanted the divorce? Oh, I didn't think you'd actually leave me. Let's start over. Let's talk it out and try to be a good couple this time, he pleaded, as if he didn't grasp the seriousness of his actions. How could he say this now? This was the same man who had wasted our savings on his mother, threatened me with divorce, and mocked me until the end. There was no chance for reconciliation. No, thank you. Please give my regards to your parents, I said cheerfully before ending the call. The next day, my phone was bombarded with voicemails and messages from Jerry, still insisting that we get back together. His persistence was confusing and unwelcome, confirming my decision to move on without him. Jerry claimed we could start over and that he loved me, but I felt he was more interested in my property and money than in our relationship. To cut ties completely, I blocked all his contact information and that of his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finished, and my parents and I moved in. We're now living comfortably in the home I built. Later, I met with a mutual friend who also knew Jerry and shared the news of our divorce. My friend offered sympathy and updated me on what had happened with Jerry and his family. It turned out that Jerry had suddenly quit his job, saying he no longer needed to work hard because he had real estate. However, his company was left in a difficult spot because they couldn't reach him. The next day, Jerry tried to take back his resignation, but his bosses, frustrated by his sudden disappearance and the trouble it caused, gave him a stern lecture. They demanded an explanation, but Jerry, unable to admit he had been relying on my income, lied about his situation. Eventually, the truth about our divorce came out, and his lies were exposed. His company refused to rehire him, realizing he had tried to manipulate the situation. Jerry, who had previously mocked my passive income, was now in a tough spot. He moved back in with his parents, who were understandably upset, and is now struggling to find a new job due to his questionable departure from his last job. It seems he's facing the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, my life has taken a positive turn. I'm living with my parents in the house I built, working in a job I love, and enjoying life. The passive income I had saved for our future will now support those who have truly stood by me. This new chapter has brought me a sense of renewal and peace, confirming that moving on was the best decision for my well-being.
You're quite the little exhibit, aren't you? That's what Sarah said to me right after dessert, as if I were a painting hanging in one of her curated hallways. I remember the fork paused halfway to my mouth, the caramel tart suddenly tasting like ash. Her voice was syrupy, her smile tight. The table laughed politely like she'd cracked a harmless joke. But I saw the way Jessie flinched, the way Amelia's eyes darted to her wineglass. My name is Hayley. I grew up in a 2-bedroom house with peeling paint and a backyard that doubled as a makeshift mechanic shop for my brother's side hustle. I put myself through college with scholarships and a waitressing job that made my feet ache for years. I built my business from scratch, no loans, no handouts. I thought I knew how to handle people like Sarah. But that night I realised she wasn't just rich, she was practised. Dinner at the O'Connor's estate was formal, even though Jessie swore it would be casual. The kind of casual where the table had more forks than guests, and the chandelier above us looked like it cost more than my first apartment. I wore a navy dress, not designer but tasteful. I'd spent hours picking it out. Sarah greeted me with a once-over that lasted too long. Her lips pursed like she'd smelled something faintly unpleasant. "You look sweet," she said, then turned away before I could respond. Jessie squeezed my hand under the table as we sat. "Ignore her," he whispered. But ignoring Sarah was like ignoring a fire alarm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "So, Hayley," she said after the first course, "what is it you do again? Something with candles?" "Custom home fragrances," I said, smiling. "We just signed a contract with a boutique hotel chain." "Ah," she said, eyes flicking to Jessie. "So entrepreneurial. That's adorable." Amelia laughed. "Mom, stop. You're making her blush." I wasn't. I don't blush easily. I just smiled and took a sip of wine. Sarah continued. "You know, In our family, we believe in protecting what we've built. Legacy, after all, takes generations. Jessie cleared his throat. Mom, no, she said, waving him off. It's important, which is why we've prepared a small formality for you, Hayley. Just a prenup, nothing dramatic. It simply ensures that the family assets remain secure. I looked at Jessie. He avoided my eyes. It's standard, he said. Everyone does it. I nodded slowly. Of course. Sarah leaned in slightly. It protects our family, you understand, dear. I smiled back. Perfectly. Later that night, after the dishes were cleared and I'd endured 2 hours of being subtly picked apart like a cheap suit, I found myself in the guest bathroom, staring at my reflection. My lipstick was still perfect, my spine still straight, but I felt like I'd been scrubbed raw. My phone buzzed. Malia. You alive? She asked. Barely, I whispered. They want a prenup. Of course they do. What's in it? Don't know yet, but I'll get it. Let me look it over when you do, she said. And Hayley? Yeah? Don't sign anything until I say so. I didn't listen. Not exactly. 2 days later, Jessie brought over the document. He was nervous, fidgeting. It's just a formality, he said again. It doesn't change anything between us. I flipped through the pages slowly. It was thick, overly detailed. They weren't just protecting their money. They were protecting their name, their legacy, their image. I was a liability they were dressing up in pearls. I smiled and signed it. Then I called Malia. Please tell me you didn't just sign that. I did. Hayley, but, I said, I need you to draft something. I heard her pause. I'm listening. I want a clause, hidden, deep enough they won't notice unless they read it cover to cover, which they won't. Something that triggers if he cheats, if the marriage ends because of him. What kind of trigger? I want compensation, not just alimony. I want full liquidity of 10 years' worth of spousal support and inheritance rights like I'm blood. Malia whistled. You're playing long game. I'm not playing, I said. I'm preparing. She was quiet for a second. Then, I'll bury it in paragraph 14, subsection B. They'll never see it coming. And they didn't. I signed it with a smile. Jessie kissed my forehead and said, See, no big deal. But buried in that mountain of legalese was my insurance, my seatbelt for the crash I saw coming. They thought I was just the girl from nowhere, lucky to marry up. A charity case with good cheekbones and no backbone. They had no idea. I don't bluff, I prepare. You weren't invited to the board dinner? Amelia asked it like she was surprised, but her tone said otherwise. She sipped her green juice, perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around the glass like she was holding a secret. No, I said, stabbing my fork into the overpriced kale salad she'd insisted we get. Apparently, it was family only. She blinked. But you are family. I smiled. That's what I thought too. She gave a soft laugh and looked away, pretending to check her phone. I didn't push it. I'd learned by now, when someone like Amelia says family, they don't mean wives, they mean blood. The truth was, I'd been married to Jessie for almost 3 years, and I still felt like a guest in their world. A well-dressed outsider they allowed into photos, but not into decisions. It started small, a charity gala where my name was left off the donor list, even though I'd written a cheque. A family portrait where I was asked to stand, on the end, just for balance. Jessie always brushed it off. They're just used to doing things a certain way. Right, a way that didn't include me. At home, Jessie was still charming, still affectionate in public. But behind closed doors he was distracted, phone always buzzing, late nights at the office. Work's crazy, he'd say, kissing my cheek with the same mouth that used to whisper dreams into my ear. Then came the party. It was a fundraiser at the O'Connor's estate. Black tie, overflowing champagne, the kind of event where people air kiss and pretend not to judge each other. I wore a sleek black dress Malia helped me pick out. Jessie didn't even notice. Glad you could make it, Sarah said at the entrance, her smile tight. We weren't sure you'd feel comfortable." "I'm always comfortable around family," I said, stepping past her. Inside, the place was buzzing. Waiters floated with trays of caviar and cocktails. A string quartet played near the fireplace. I scanned the room for Jesse. He was near the bar, laughing with a woman I didn't recognise. She was tall, stunning, with a body that said Pilates and a dress that said, "I know I'm being watched." Her hand lingered too long on his arm. I walked up casually. "Hey," I said, slipping my hand into Jesse's. He jumped slightly. "Hayley, you look great." The woman turned to me, smiling like we were old friends. "You must be the wife," she said. "And you are?" "Zara," she said. "I work with Jesse. We've been pulling some late nights together. He's brilliant." I smiled. "He is, and punctual too. Always comes home right after work." Jessie coughed. "Zara, this is Hayley." "I figured," she said, her eyes glinting. "You have that classic look. Very elegant." "Thanks," I said. "And you have something in your—" She leaned in, confused. I reached into her hair and plucked out a tiny piece of lint. "There. Got it." Her smile faltered. I stayed by Jessie's side the rest of the night. Zara drifted off eventually, but not before brushing past me in the hallway. "You're lucky," she said, low enough that only I could hear. "Men like Jesse don't come around twice." I tilted my head. "No, they usually just circle back to the same mistakes." She raised a brow, then walked away. Later, in the powder room, I opened my clutch to reapply lipstick and found a bracelet nestled inside. Gold, delicate, unmistakably expensive. I stared at it for a moment. Zara's bracelet. I walked out calmly and found her near the terrace. "Hey," I said, holding it out. "You must have dropped this. Found it in my bag." She blinked. "Oh, that's so weird. Thank you." "No problem," I said. "I'm sure it just slipped in there by accident." She nodded, but her eyes flickered. "Of course." I smiled and walked away, heart pounding. Back at home, Jesse was quiet. He undressed slowly, like his body was heavy. "Long night?" I asked. "Yeah." "Zara's interesting." He paused. "She's just a co-worker." "Didn't say she wasn't." He didn't respond, just climbed into bed and turned off the light. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The thing about being underestimated is people stop hiding their intentions. They think you're too naive to notice, too soft to do anything about it. But I noticed, and I never forget, not even a bracelet. "Why are you taking pictures of receipts?" Jessie asked, standing in the kitchen doorway, shirt half buttoned, hair still damp from the shower. I didn't flinch. I just smiled and held up my phone. "Tax season's coming." He nodded slowly, then reached for his keys. "I've got a meeting downtown. Might be late." "You were late yesterday." "Yeah, it's that time of year." I walked over and adjusted his collar like I used to do when we were dating. "Tell Zara I said hi." He froze for half a second. "What?" "You said you were meeting with her today, right?" "No, I didn't." I stepped back. "Oh, must have misunderstood." He left without another word. The second the door clicked shut, I grabbed my other phone, the one he didn't know about, and opened the app. GPS tracking showed his car headed toward Midtown, not downtown. I took a screenshot and saved it. I'd been collecting for weeks. Receipts, calendar inconsistencies, photos of him and Zara leaving the office together. A video clip from a friend who worked at the same building. Jesse with his hand on Zara's back as they walked into a hotel lobby at 11:47 p.m. I wasn't angry. I was documenting. At brunch that weekend, Amelia stirred her mimosa like it had personally offended her. "You've been quiet lately." "Just tired." She gave me a look. "You should be careful with that. Jessie doesn't like when people get suspicious." "Suspicious?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She leaned in. "You know how this family works. We protect our own. We don't air dirty laundry." "I'm not airing anything." "Good, because dragging Jessie down with your paranoia, it's not very elegant." I smiled. "Neither is cheating." Her face hardened. "You don't have proof." I lifted my glass. "Don't need it. Not yet." She didn't respond. just picked up her phone and started texting furiously. Back home, I opened my laptop and logged into the shared financial dashboard Jessie had given me access to when we got married. It was clean, too clean, no large withdrawals, no unusual transfers. Then I remembered something Malia once told me. If someone's hiding money, they're not doing it in plain sight. They're building walls around it. I called her. "Hey," she answered, "you sound like you're about to ask me to do something illegal." "Not illegal, just thorough." She laughed. "What are we looking for?" "Trusts, shell accounts, anything that doesn't have my name on it." "Got it. Give me a day." The next afternoon, she called back, voice clipped. "Found something." "Tell me." "He set up a trust 6 months ago. Your name's nowhere near it." I swallowed. "How much?" "High 6 figures, possibly more. He's been moving small amounts regularly. It's smart, quiet, but it's definitely a stash." "Does his family know?" "Doubt it. This looks personal." I stared out the window, watching Jessie's car pull into the driveway. "I need that in writing," I said. "Already sent it to your secure email." I hung up and walked to the kitchen just in time to see Jessie walk in. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys on the counter. "You okay?" "Fine." He kissed my cheek. "You sure? You've been acting weird." I smiled. "Just tired. You know how it is." He nodded and pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. I leaned on the counter. "So, Zara got promoted." He looked up. "What?" "She's now listed as a senior advisor. That's a big jump." He blinked. "Oh, yeah, she's good at what she does." "Did you recommend her?" He hesitated. I might have put in a word. I nodded. "Of course." He looked at me for a second longer, then walked into the living room. I followed, sat on the armrest beside him. "You know, I used to think we were a team." "We are." "No, we're not." He looked up, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You've been lying, Jessie, about a lot of things." He stood up. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then you won't mind if I ask Malia to go over our finances again?" His jaw clenched. "Why would you do that?" I stood too, facing him. "Because I'm not stupid, and I'm not scared." He stared at me, then laughed bitterly. "You're paranoid." "Maybe, but paranoid people survive." He grabbed his jacket. "I'm going out." "Of course you are." He slammed the door behind him. I sat back down, pulled out my phone and opened the folder labelled "Just in Case." Dozens of screenshots, emails, photos, transcripts, proof. I wasn't ready to use it. Not yet. But I would be. Brunch was at the country club. Of course it was. The table was set for 6, but only 5 of us were there. Me, Jessie, Sarah, Amelia and Zara. Yes, Zara. She sat next to Jessie like she belonged there, like she'd always belonged there. Not across from him, not across from me. "Hayley," Sarah said, her voice coated in that familiar brand of poison sweet. "You look rested." "Thanks," I said. "I slept great." "I'm surprised you came," Amelia added, stirring her coffee. "We assumed you'd be busy." I made time. Jessie cleared his throat. "We should just get to it." I turned to him. "Get to what?" He glanced at his mother, then at Zara, who gave him a small supportive smile. My stomach didn't twist, my hands didn't shake. I already knew. "I've filed for divorce," Jessie said. The words landed like a dull thud. Everyone looked at me, waiting for a scene. I blinked once. "Over eggs?" Sarah set down her fork. "This protects our family. You understand, dear?" Jessie nodded. "It's just a formality." I reached into my handbag and pulled out a manila folder. "Then I assume you've reviewed the prenup?" Zara tilted her head. "What prenup?" Sarah's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" I opened the folder and slid a set of documents across the table. "This is a copy of the agreement I signed, paragraph 14, subsection B. You should read it." Jessie picked it up, flipping through the pages like he was seeing them for the first time. Because he was. Zara leaned over his shoulder. "What is this?" Malia walked in right on cue, heels clicking against the marble floor. She wore a power suit and a look that could kill. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Traffic." Sarah's face turned to stone. "Who is this?" "My attorney," I said, "and best friend." Malia sat next to me, pulled out her own copy of the prenup, and laid it flat on the table. "As per clause 14b, she began, "if the marriage dissolves due to infidelity on Jessie's part, Hayley is entitled to full liquidity compensation equivalent to 10 years of spousal support, plus inheritance rights equal to a direct blood heir." Silence. Zara's face drained of colour. "Wait, what?" Jessie dropped the papers. "This wasn't in the version I saw." Malia smiled. "That's because you didn't read it. Your lawyer didn't either, but it's notarized, signed, and legally binding." Sarah's voice turned sharp. "This is absurd. We'll fight it." "You're welcome to," Malia said. "But we've already filed a motion with the court. You'll lose." Amelia looked at me like I'd just set the table on fire. "You've destroyed everything. For what? Money?" I turned to her. "No, for recognition." Jessie stood, pacing. "You tricked me." "No," I said. "I protected myself." Zara pushed back her chair. "This is insane. You're just bitter." I looked at her, calm. "You left your bracelet in my purse. Remember that?" Her eyes widened. "I knew from that moment. You wanted a reaction. You got one." Sarah stood. "This isn't over." "It is," Malia said, rising beside me. "You just didn't see it coming." We left them there, sitting in their curated little world, choking on their own entitlement. Outside, the sun was blinding. Malia handed me her sunglasses. "How do you feel?" "Like I just flipped the board." She smiled. "Good. Now let's burn the rule book." Sarah's voice cracked for the first time in the 5 years I'd known her. This clause is outrageous." She stood in the centre of Jessie's office, waving the prenup like it was a piece of garbage. Her pearls rattled against her collarbone, and for once her perfect posture looked like it might collapse. Jessie sat on the edge of his desk, pale, silent. Zara was nowhere to be seen. She'd left the brunch in a flurry of fake coughs and a muttered excuse about needing air. Malia crossed her arms and leaned against the bookshelf like she owned the room. "It's not outrageous, it's legal, and you signed it." "You tricked us," Sarah hissed. "No," I said calmly. "I protected myself. You gave me a contract. I signed it. You should have read it." Jessie finally spoke. "You buried it." I turned to him. "You think your family didn't bury clauses in there first? You think I didn't notice the part about forfeiting inheritance rights unless I produced a child within 5 years? Or the clause that required I maintain a public image consistent with O'Connor values?" Malia smirked. "You people love burying things. You just don't expect anyone to dig." Sarah's face flushed. "You'll never get away with this. We'll challenge it." "Go ahead," Malia said. "We've already filed with the court. Judge Harris is reviewing it now." Jessie rubbed his forehead. "This is going to ruin me." "No," I said. "Your choices ruined you. I just made sure I wouldn't go down with you." The room fell quiet. Sarah looked like she was about to lunge across the desk. Instead, she turned and stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots against the floor. Jessie looked up at me, eyes glassy. "You were waiting for this." "No," I said. "I was hoping I wouldn't need it." He swallowed hard. "You don't have to go through with it. We can settle, quietly." Malia raised an eyebrow. "You mean pay her less than she's owed so your reputation survives?" He ignored her, staring at me. "Hayley, please, this doesn't have to be war." I stepped closer. "You filed for divorce while sitting next to the woman you cheated with. You didn't even have the decency to lie about it well. You wanted a clean break. You thought I'd walk away with nothing." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "I walked into this family with nothing but love and good intentions. You all treated me like I was disposable. So no, Jessie, this isn't war. This is consequence." He looked down at his hands. Malia tapped her phone. "We'll expect the first transfer within 30 days. If not, we'll proceed with asset seizure. You've already been served notice." As we turned to leave, Amelia appeared in the doorway. "You're proud of this?" she asked me. I paused. "No, but I'm not ashamed either." "You've destroyed our family." I tilted my head. "Your family was already rotting. I just pulled back the curtain." She stepped forward, eyes sharp. "You could have walked away quietly. You didn't have to humiliate us." "You're right," I said, "but you didn't have to humiliate me for 5 years either." She shook her head. "You'll never be one of us." "Good," I said. "That was the point." Back in the car, Malia exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. God, that was satisfying. I didn't answer. She glanced at me. "You okay?" "I don't know," I said. "I thought I'd feel more." "You will," she said. "Give it time. Right now, you're still in it." We pulled up to my place. I got out, walked up the steps, and paused with my hand on the doorknob. Inside, everything was the same. The couch we picked together, the photo from our honeymoon still hanging on the wall, the vase Sarah gave us as a wedding gift, empty. I walked straight to the closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. Letters from my mum, old photos, the necklace Travis gave me the day I graduated. I sat on the floor and opened one of the envelopes. My mum's handwriting was shaky, but warm. "You don't owe anyone your silence, Hayley. If they try to make you small, remember who raised you." I smiled, tears finally coming. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. "I hope it was worth it. None of us will recover from this." I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. You gave me neither, so I took both." And I hit send. Sarah showed up at my door in pearls and panic. I opened it before she could knock twice. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside like she still owned the air in every room. I didn't offer her a seat. She looked around, nose wrinkling slightly. "You're really staying here?" "It's my home." She turned to face me. "This can't go public. The clause, the payout, the divorce, none of it. It'll ruin everything." I leaned against the doorframe. "You mean it'll ruin your name?" She crossed her arms. "We're willing to offer a settlement, quiet, generous." "I already have a settlement, court approved." Her jaw clenched. "You don't understand what you're doing." "No, Sarah, you don't understand who you married your son to." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "I'm not going to be your family's dirty little secret. I'm not going to disappear just because you're uncomfortable." "You'll regret this," she said quietly. I already regretted staying silent for 5 years. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned on her heel and left without another word. The next day, Jesse called. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I didn't think it would get this far." "You didn't think I'd fight back?" He sighed. "Zara's gone. She took a leave. HR's involved now." "Not my problem. I'm trying to fix this." "You're trying to save face." He didn't deny it. "I'll do interviews," he said. "Say it was mutual, that we grew apart." "You'll say nothing," I said. "You'll stick to the court-approved script and pay what you owe." Silence. "You really hate me, don't you?" "No," I said. "I just finally see you." That week the motions went public. The prenup clause made headlines in legal circles. A few journalists reached out. I ignored the first 3. The 4th one got a reply. She was young, sharp, and smelled blood in the water. "I'm not looking to trash anyone," I told her over coffee, "but I think women should know how to protect themselves." She nodded, recorder already running. "Can I ask why you stayed so long?" I smiled. "Because I wanted to believe love could outlast power. I was wrong." The article dropped 2 days later. It didn't name names, but everyone knew. The O'Connors were suddenly very quiet. That night, Travis called. "I saw the piece." "Yeah?" "You sounded like Mum." I laughed. "That's a compliment." He paused. "You done now?" "What do you mean?" "You've won, Hales. Know when to walk away." I looked out the window. The O'Connors' world was unravelling. Creditors were circling. Zara's ethics complaint was under review. Jesse's company shares dropped after the board heard about the trust fund he tried to hide, and yet I didn't feel done. "I don't know," I said. Be careful, he said. Revenge burns clean, but it still leaves smoke. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. The next morning, I got a call from a private number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Amelia. I hope you're happy. Dad's health is slipping, and Mum's barely holding it together. You've turned this into a circus. If you ever cared about this family, you'll stop now. I deleted it. Then I sent another anonymous tip to the journalist about the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the way Sarah funneled money through charities to avoid taxes. I didn't need to burn the house down. I just needed to show the matches were always in their hands. The fallout came fast after that. A quiet audit turned into a full investigation. Invitations to galas stopped arriving. Their name, once whispered with reverence, now came with side eyes and questions. I stayed silent. Until I didn't. Malia and I launched our firm that month, Quinn and Hunter Legal Trusts. We specialised in protective clauses for women entering high-value marriages. Our first client was a woman who looked a lot like me 5 years ago, nervous, in love, unsure. I handed her a pen. You don't need to expect betrayal, just prepare for it. She signed with steady hands, and I finally exhaled. Jessie tried to sell the lake house in secret. I found out on a Tuesday. Malia called while I was slicing strawberries in my kitchen. He's moving assets, she said. Fast. The lake house is already in escrow. I set the knife down. That house is covered under the freeze order. Not if he claims it was a personal liquidation before the clause was enforced. He's trying to skip around the timeline. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. Then we go to court. Already filed the injunction. 3 days later, we were back in the same courtroom where the prenup had been validated. Jessie sat with a new lawyer, someone younger, slicker, desperate. He didn't look at me once. The judge flipped through the documents, glasses perched low on his nose. You attempted to transfer this property knowing full well it was under legal review, he said to Jessie. You're either careless or arrogant, possibly both. Jessie's lawyer stood. Your Honour, my client was unaware. Sit down, the judge said, not even looking up. He turned to me. Mrs. O'Connor? Just Hayley, I said. He nodded. Hayley, the clause stands. The property is yours as part of the settlement. Any further attempts to liquidate assets will be considered contempt. I nodded once. Understood. Jessie finally looked at me as I walked out of the courtroom. His face was blank, but his eyes were glassy. He mouthed something. I didn't stop to read it. That weekend, the O'Connors hosted their annual gala, or tried to. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I knew the time, the place, the dress code. I also knew the creditors had been waiting for the right moment to strike. I didn't go to watch the wreckage. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat with Malia in our new office, sipping wine while our phones buzzed with updates. Creditors served them mid-toast, she said, scrolling. Sarah almost fainted. I raised my glass. Cheers. Zara's name popped up next on my screen, a forwarded article from a business blog. Senior Advisor Zara Hill under investigation for workplace misconduct. Malia clicked it open. Looks like someone found the HR complaints. She'll land on her feet, I said. People like her always do, but not in this town. The next day, I announced our firm's official launch on social media. The post was simple. Quinn and Hunter Legal Trusts, built by women, for women, because protection isn't paranoia, it's power. It went viral within hours. I didn't check the comments, I didn't need validation, but I did get a message from Amelia. I hope it was worth it. None of us will recover from this. I stared at the screen for a while, then I typed, You were never supposed to. I didn't send it. Instead, I powered off my phone and walked outside. The evening air was cool, the sky streaked with orange and pink. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who walked into that estate with hope in her heart and a ring on her finger. She was gone. But the woman who replaced her? She didn't beg. She didn't break. She built. The tyres crunched over gravel as I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in. The paint was faded. The porch sagged a little, and the wind chimes still clinked like they had something to say. Travis was already outside, leaning against the railing with a beer in one hand and a smirk on his face. "You're late," he said. "I'm not," I replied, stepping out of the car. "You're just early." He handed me a beer. "You look different." "Is that your way of saying I look tired?" "No, it's my way of saying you look like someone who just torched a dynasty." I laughed and clinked my bottle against his. "Cheers to that." We sat on the porch, watching the sun dip low behind the trees. It smelled like cut grass and dust. I hadn't realised how much I missed it. "So," he said after a long silence, "was it worth it?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a sip and looked out at the field where we used to play tag until our legs gave out. "I didn't get peace," I said, "but I got power, and I think I needed that more." He nodded. "You always wanted to prove them wrong." "They made it easy." We sat in silence again, the kind that only exists between people who've known each other their whole lives. "I'm turning this place into something," I said finally. He looked over. "What do you mean?" "A shelter for women, the kind who get talked over, pushed out, told to stay quiet. I've got the funding, just need permits and a contractor who won't ghost me." He whistled. "That's big." "It's necessary," he smiled. "Mum would have liked that." "I think so too." The next morning I met with the contractor on site. He was gruff but honest and didn't blink when I told him I wanted the upstairs converted into private rooms and the garage turned into a legal aid office. "You're not messing around," he said. "No," I said. "I don't do that anymore." After he left, I walked through the house slowly. The wallpaper in the hallway was still peeling. The kitchen sink still dripped, but the bones were good. Just needed care. I stopped in my old bedroom. The walls were bare now, but I could still see the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling as a kid. I sat on the floor and pulled out the folder Malia had given me. Notes, plans, grant applications. There was a knock on the doorframe. I looked up. Amelia stood there. "How did you find me?" "I asked your brother." I stood. "You're not welcome here." "I know," she said. "I just wanted to say something." I waited. "You were right," she said quietly. "About all of it. About us. About Jessie." I crossed my arms. "That doesn't change anything." "I'm not here to change anything. I wanted you to know I admired it, what you did, even if I hated it." I blinked. "You admired it? You walked into our world and beat us at our own game, with a smile? That takes guts." I didn't respond. She took a step back. "I won't bother you again." "Amelia," I said, stopping her. "Why now?" She hesitated. "Because I thought we were better than we were, and you proved we weren't." I nodded once. "Take care of yourself." "You too." She left without another word. Later that afternoon, I stood in front of the house again, clipboard in hand, watching as the first crew truck pulled up. A young woman stepped out of the passenger side. She looked nervous, maybe 22, holding a hard hat too big for her head. "You the owner?" she asked. "I am." She smiled. "It's cool what you're doing here." "Thanks," I said. "You're part of the crew?" "Intern, first project." I handed her the clipboard. "Then let's get to work." As the team began unloading tools and supplies, I stepped back and looked at the house one more time. They told me revenge was petty, but no, revenge was precise. And now I build from the ashes.
I never expected to find my grandfather's letter while cleaning out his study, but there it was, tucked away in a worn leather journal, waiting like a time bomb to upend my entire life. The envelope had my name written across it in his precise handwriting, for Cassidy Harper, to be opened upon my passing. My name is Cass, and until that moment, I thought I knew exactly who I was and where my life was headed. I was wrong. "Mom," I called out, my voice echoing through the empty halls of my grandfather's mansion. "Mom, I found something." The floorboards creaked as my mother's footsteps approached. She appeared in the doorway, still wearing her nurse's scrubs from her night shift, dark circles under her eyes. What is it, honey? My hands trembled as I held up the envelope. It's from Grandpa. She crossed the room and sat beside me on the dusty floor, surrounded by boxes of old business documents and family photos. Well, open it. I broke the seal and unfolded the letter, my grandfather's words jumping off the page. My dearest Cassidy, if you're reading this, I've passed on, leaving behind not just my legacy, but a challenge. You've always been special, different from the rest of the family. You remind me of myself at your age, ambitious, determined, but perhaps too eager to prove yourself to others rather than to yourself. I've set aside a substantial inheritance for you, but it won't come easily. To claim it, you must first prove your worth by achieving something remarkable on your own terms. No handouts, no family connections, just your own grit and determination. You have 1 year from today to build something meaningful. What that means is for you to decide. The details of your inheritance will be revealed only when you've shown you're ready for it. Remember, true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the strength of one's character. With love and faith in your potential. Grandfather. That sounds exactly like him, Mom said softly, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Always testing, always pushing. But what does he mean by something meaningful? I asked, running my fingers over his signature. And how will anyone know if I've succeeded? Your grandfather never did anything without a plan, Mom replied, picking up a framed photo of him from a nearby box. He probably has someone watching, evaluating. I thought about my life, my small online boutique that was barely breaking even, my engagement to Ben from the prestigious Aldridge family, and how everyone assumed I'd just coast through life on his family's wealth and connections. Maybe that's why he did this, I said, realization dawning. He knew about Ben's family, about Victoria. Mom's expression hardened at the mention of my future mother-in-law. That woman has made it clear she thinks you're not good enough for her precious son. Perhaps your grandfather wanted to give you a chance to prove her wrong. Or prove something to myself, I murmured, standing up and walking to the window. The setting sun cast long shadows across my grandfather's immaculate garden, where he taught me about patience and persistence while tending to his prized roses. My phone buzzed, a text from Ben. Dinner at my parents' tonight. Mother insists. Don't be late this time. I stared at the message, then back at the letter in my hand. For the first time, I felt the weight of my grandfather's words settling into my bones. This wasn't just about an inheritance. It was about choosing who I wanted to be. I need to make some changes, I said, turning back to Mom. Big ones. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Your grandfather always said that sometimes you need to lose your way to find your path. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Whatever my grandfather's challenge meant, whatever something meaningful I needed to build. I knew one thing for certain. Victoria Aldridge was about to meet a very different Cassidy Harper. The Aldridge mansion always made me feel like I was walking into a museum, everything perfectly placed, untouchable, and cold. Tonight was no different, except I had my grandfather's letter burning a hole in my purse, giving me an odd sense of courage as I rang the doorbell. Victoria opened the door herself, perfectly coiffed as always. Cassidy, dear, you're actually on time for once. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. Good evening, Victoria. The dining room was a study in old money, crystal chandelier, antique silverware, and enough tension to crack the fine china. Ben squeezed my hand under the table as Walter, his father, cleared his throat. So, Cassidy, Victoria began, delicately cutting into her salmon, I heard your little online shop is still operating. The way she said operating made it sound like a terminal illness. I straightened my spine, remembering my grandfather's words about proving myself. Actually, I'm expanding, I replied. I've been working on a new business plan. Oh, darling, Victoria interrupted, sharing a knowing look with Walter. Wouldn't it be better to focus on the wedding plans? After all, once you're married to Bennett, you won't need to worry about such things. Ben shifted uncomfortably beside me, but said nothing. Typical. I think it's important to have my own goals, I said firmly. My grandfather always taught me. Yes, your grandfather. Victoria cut in again. Such a shame about his passing. Though I must say, the inheritance situation seems rather unusual. My fork clattered against my plate. Excuse me? Well, word gets around in our circles, dear. A conditional inheritance? It seems rather cruel to make you jump through hoops like some circus performer. The room went silent. I could feel Ben's eyes on me, but I kept my gaze locked on Victoria. My grandfather believed in earning your way, I said quietly. Something about building character. Victoria's laugh was like ice crackling. Character? In our world, dear, it's about connections. Speaking of which, Bennett, didn't you want to tell Cassidy about the country club membership? Ben finally spoke up. Mother, I don't think. We've sponsored you both for membership, Victoria announced. It's essential for our social circle. The wedding announcements will be in their newsletter. I set down my napkin. Actually, I'd prefer to wait on the announcements. With my business expansion. Nonsense. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Bennett needs to establish himself as a family man for his upcoming promotion. The timing is perfect. Victoria, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I appreciate the gesture, but Ben and I should decide our timeline. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. My dear, you seem to be under the impression that you have a say in how the Aldridge family conducts its affairs.
How?
Quaint. Ben's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing in what he probably thought was reassurance. But all I felt was pressure, to conform, to submit, to become another perfectly placed object in Victoria's museum. I stood up slowly. I need some air. As I walked toward the garden, I heard Victoria's voice floating behind me. Really, Bennett, are you sure she's the right fit for our family? In the garden, I pulled out my grandfather's letter, reading it again under the moonlight. The words, your own terms, jumped out at me, and suddenly I understood why he'd set this challenge. Ben found me there, his footsteps hesitant on the gravel path. Cass, you know how Mother can be. She means well. I turned to face him, really seeing him for the first time, the golden boy who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. Does she, Ben? Does she really? He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. Just
give it time.
Things will settle once we're married. But as I watched him standing there, unable to defend me, unable to stand up to his mother, I realized something that sent a chill down my spine. Things wouldn't settle. They would get worse. And my grandfather's challenge wasn't just about proving myself to others, it was about proving to myself that I deserved better than this. The email from Felix Moreno arrived just as I was trying to salvage what was left of my morning. 3 potential investors had already backed out of meetings with my boutique, all citing scheduling conflicts.
Right.
Interesting timing, I muttered, clicking open the message. Felix was a legend in the fashion industry, known for turning small brands into empire-level successes. Why would he be reaching out to me? I've been watching your work, his email read. Coffee? Today at 2. I was about to reply when my phone buzzed with a text from one of my suppliers. Sorry, but we have to terminate our contract. Nothing personal. Nothing personal.
Right.
Just like the investors' sudden scheduling conflicts weren't personal. Just like Victoria's smug smile at last week's charity luncheon wasn't personal. I dialed Ben's number, my hands shaking. Straight to voicemail. Again. Meeting Felix Moreno. I typed back to the email. Send me the address. The cafe Felix chose was nothing like I expected, no pretension, just a cozy corner spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh coffee. He stood when I approached, his smile genuine beneath salt and pepper hair. Cassidy Harper, he said, extending his hand. I've been following your situation with interest. My situation? He gestured for me to sit. Small businesses don't usually lose 3 investors and a major supplier in 1 week without reason. Especially not promising ones like yours. How did you? Victoria Aldridge has a lot of influence, he said simply. But she's not the only one with connections. My coffee cup rattled against its saucer. You know Victoria? I know how she operates. She's trying to squeeze you out, make you dependent on her son's family money. He leaned forward. Question is, What are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with Ben's face. Finally. Sorry, I need to take this, I said, stepping outside. Ben. Cass, where are you? Mother's been trying to reach you about the wedding planner. Ben, my suppliers just dropped me. All of them.
Did you know anything about this?
A pause. Mother might have mentioned something about protecting the family's interests. The world tilted sideways. Family interests? What about my interests, Ben? My business? Look, maybe Mother's right. The boutique was just a hobby anyway, wasn't it? Once we're married. A hobby? My voice cracked. Is that what you think of my work? Cass, be reasonable. Mother's just looking out for us. She says. Stop.
Just.
Stop. I ended the call, my vision blurring. When I returned to the table, Felix was studying me with knowing eyes. Tough call. Victoria's been blacklisting my business, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. And my fiancé, he's choosing her side. Felix nodded slowly. You know, I knew your grandfather. That stopped me cold. What? Smart man. Taught me a lot about business. And about recognizing potential. He pulled out a folder. I have a proposition for you. A partnership that would put your boutique on the map, completely independent of the Aldridge influence. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The terms were better than I'd ever dreamed possible. Why? I asked. Why help me? Because talent deserves a chance, he said. And because watching Victoria Aldridge's face when your brand succeeds on its own will be satisfying. My phone buzzed again, Victoria's number this time. I silenced it, thinking of my grandfather's letter, of his challenge to prove myself. There's one condition, Felix added. You can't tell anyone about our partnership. Not yet. Let them think you're failing, let them get comfortable in their victory. Then we'll show them what you're really capable of. I thought about Victoria's smug smile, about Ben's weakness, about all the times I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. When do we start? I asked, reaching for the pen. Felix's smile was sharp. We already have. Check your email tonight. You'll find some interesting information about who's really been sabotaging your business. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's having proof. As I signed the contract, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. This was about justice, and I was just getting started. The invitation to New York Fashion Week's Emerging Designer Showcase sat on my desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. Felix had pulled strings I didn't even know existed, creating an opportunity that could launch my brand into the stratosphere. The catch? It was the same weekend as Ben's family's annual charity gala. My phone lit up with Ben's message. Mother's furious. Says you're embarrassing the family by skipping the gala. Please don't make this difficult. I was still staring at his text when Felix walked into my studio, his expression grim. You need to see this. He handed me his tablet, open to a society blog. There, in high-resolution glory, was a photo of Victoria having lunch with Marcus Chen, my biggest competitor in the local fashion scene. The same Marcus Chen who'd suddenly started carrying suspiciously similar designs to my upcoming collection. That's not all, Felix said, scrolling down. Look who else was at that lunch. My heart stopped.
Ben.
My fiancé was there, smiling and shaking Marcus's hand. The photos were taken 3 days ago, Felix added quietly, right after your designs were leaked. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of my desk, my engagement ring catching the light mockingly. I need to talk to Ben, I managed. Cassidy. He must have an explanation. Ben agreed to meet me at our usual cafe. He was already there when I arrived, fiddling with his watch, the nervous tell I used to find endearing. Mother says you're being unreasonable about the gala, he started before I could speak. It's tradition, Cass. The whole family. I slid Felix's tablet across the table. Ben's face went pale. Want to explain this? It's not what you think, he stammered. Mother suggested I network with Marcus. He's very successful. And the leaked designs? Was that networking too? His silence was deafening. Did you know? I pressed. Did you know what they were planning? Mother said it was for your own good. He finally mumbled. that you needed to focus on being an Aldridge, not chasing pipe dreams. Something inside me shattered. Pipe dreams? Is that what you think of my work? Be realistic, Cass. What's more important, some fashion show or our future? They're the same thing. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. At least, they should be. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being betrayed. By my fiancé. By the man who's supposed to be my partner. Ben reached for my hand. We can fix this. Just apologize to Mother. Attend the gala? I yanked my hand away. And what about my show? My designs that your mother helped steal. They're just clothes, Cass. For words. That's all it took to make everything crystallize. My phone buzzed. Felix sending the final confirmation for New York. I needed to decide now. The showcase or the gala. My dreams or Ben's family. My future or their version of it. I have to go, I said, gathering my things. I have a meeting about those, just clothes. Cass, wait. But I was already walking away, my mind racing with possibilities. Victoria thought she'd backed me into a corner, but she'd forgotten something crucial. Cornered animals fight back. Back at the studio, Felix was waiting. Well, how much time do we have to create a new collection? He raised an eyebrow. 3 weeks until New York. It's impossible. I thought about my grandfather's letter about proving my worth. About Ben's betrayal and Victoria's smug certainty that I'd fall in line. Nothing's impossible, I said, pulling out my sketchbook. And I want to make damn sure that when Victoria sees these designs on the runway, she knows exactly what she tried to steal. Felix's slow smile was all the answer I needed. I'll make some calls. But Cassidy, this isn't just about proving yourself anymore. This is war. I looked down at my engagement ring, then slowly slipped it off. No, this is justice. And I'm just getting started. The engagement party at the Aldridge Mansion felt like a carefully orchestrated trap. Every crystal glass, every perfectly arranged flower screamed Victoria's influence. I stood in the corner, watching Ben work the room, wondering how I'd let things get this far. Darling, there you are. Victoria's voice cut through my thoughts. She gripped my arm, steering me toward a group of society women. Ladies, this is Bennett's
Fiancé.
The pause before fiancé was deliberate, just like everything else Victoria did. We heard about your little fashion venture. One woman said, pearl necklace gleaming. Such a shame about the copy designs. My champagne glass froze halfway to my lips. Excuse me? Oh, didn't you know? Victoria's smile was razor sharp. Marcus Chen's new collection is causing quite a stir. Some say it's remarkably similar to certain amateur sketches. The room suddenly felt too small. I searched for Ben, finding him deep in conversation with Marcus Chen himself. They were laughing. If you'll excuse me, I managed, but Victoria's grip tightened. Actually, I have an announcement to make. She clinked her glass, drawing everyone's attention. Bennett and Cassidy have agreed to move up the wedding. Next month, in fact. The room erupted in polite applause. I stood there, stunned. We hadn't agreed to anything. Mother, Ben appeared beside us. We haven't. Nonsense, darling. The arrangements are all made. The country club is perfect in spring, and this way, Cassidy can focus on being a proper Aldridge wife instead of these distractions. The word hung in the air like poison. I felt dozens of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. This was Victoria's power play. Back down or cause a scene. Actually, I heard myself say, I have an announcement too. Victoria's smile flickered. Ben touched my arm. Cass, don't. My new collection will be debuting at New York Fashion Week. The words fell like bombs in the silent room. The one Marcus Chen didn't manage to steal. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's face hardened. How dare you accuse? I have proof. I pulled out my phone, bringing up the photos Felix had gathered. Interesting lunch meeting you all had last week. Did you really think no one would notice? This is hardly the time or place, Victoria hissed. You're right. I turned to the crowd. The time was before you tried to destroy my business. The place was anywhere but here, where you planned to announce my wedding date without even asking me. Ben stepped forward. Cassidy, you're embarrassing yourself.
No, Ben.
For once, I'm standing up for myself. I slipped off my engagement ring. I won't let your mother dictate my life or steal my dreams. Victoria's laugh was cold. Dreams? You think a few dresses make you special? Without the Aldridge name, you're nothing. That's where you're wrong. I held up my grandfather's letter. I'm a Harper, and we build our own legacy. The room was dead silent as I walked toward the door. Ben called after me. Cass, wait. We can fix this. I turned back one last time. There's nothing to fix, Ben. Your mother wanted me to choose between my dreams and your family. So I'm choosing. You'll regret this, Victoria called out. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I smiled, thinking of the collection hidden in my studio, of Felix's connections, of my grandfather's words about proving my worth.
No, Victoria.
You'll regret underestimating me. Outside, the night air felt like freedom. My phone buzzed, a message from Felix. Buyers confirmed for the show. Ready to make history? I took one last look at the mansion, at the life I thought I wanted, at the cage Victoria had tried to build around me. Then I typed back, time to show them what a Harper can do. As I drove away, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about destroying Victoria. It was about becoming everything she said I couldn't be. And I was just getting started. The real war would begin in New York, and this time, I had nothing left to lose. The annual charity gala buzzed with whispers as I walked in. 3 months of work, sleepless nights, and Felix's guidance had transformed my small boutique into a rising star. Tonight was supposed to be my triumph, my first major donation as a successful businesswoman. Instead, Victoria was already holding court near the stage, Marcus Chun at her side. Cassidy Harper, she announced loudly as I passed. How brave of you to show up, considering the circumstances. I kept walking, but her voice carried. Did you hear about the plagiarism accusations? Apparently, she stole designs from poor Marcus here. Felix appeared at my elbow, steady as always. Remember the plan. Let her talk. She's turning everything around, I whispered, making me look like the thief. That's what cornered animals do. They lash out. The donation ceremony began. I watched as Victoria took the stage, Ben beside her, both radiating old money confidence. The Aldridge family is proud to announce a $100,000 donation, Victoria declared. Then her eyes found mine. Unlike some who try to buy their way into society with suspicious funds, the room went silent. I felt dozens of eyes turn to me. What is she talking about? Someone whispered. Victoria's smile was venomous. Oh, didn't everyone know? Miss Harper's sudden success came right after breaking things off with my son. Quite convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Using poor Bennett's investment to fund her adventures. My hands shook as I stood. That's a lie. Is it? Victoria produced a document. These bank transfers suggest otherwise. Felix grabbed my arm. Don't. But I was already moving toward the stage. Ben wouldn't meet my eyes as I passed him. Those transfers, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, were reversed. By your son, after he and your husband tried to sabotage my business. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's smile never wavered. Such accusations. But then we expected this sort of common behavior. After all, what else could we expect from someone who what? I pulled out my grandfather's letter. Someone who earned their success instead of marrying into it. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Security, please remove.
No.
I turned to face the crowd. You all want to know where my money came from? Here's the truth. I unfolded the letter, but before I could read it, Ben stepped forward. Cass, don't do this. Why not? Afraid everyone will learn how your family operates.
No.
His voice was quiet. Afraid they'll learn how you operate. Show them the rest of the letter, Cass. The part about the conditions. My blood ran cold. What? Victoria's smile widened. Oh yes, do share. About how your grandfather's inheritance required you to marry into a prominent family. How you used my son to fulfill those conditions. The letter trembled in my hands. That's not the full letter, Miss Harper. Victoria produced another document, which my private investigators so helpfully obtained from your grandfather's lawyer. The room spun as I read the second page, the page I'd never seen. My grandfather's words burned into my brain. Marriage into a family of suitable standing will prove you understand the value of strategic alliances. No, I whispered. Yes, Victoria purred. You played the game just as calculated as anyone. The only difference is you lost. I looked at Felix, saw the shock on his face. All our plans, all our work. The donation committee, Victoria announced, might want to reconsider accepting funds from someone who built their success on manipulation and lies. The whispers grew louder. I watched as everything I'd built began crumbling around me. Cass, Felix murmured, we need to go. But I stood frozen, watching Ben avoid my gaze, seeing Victoria's triumph, feeling my grandfather's legacy twist into something ugly and false. As security approached, I realized the true depth of Victoria's revenge. She hadn't just attacked my business or my reputation. She destroyed the one thing I thought I could trust, my grandfather's faith in me. The worst part? I didn't know anymore if she was wrong about me after all. I found Ben waiting outside my apartment, leaning against his car in the rain. 3 days had passed since the gala, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing with cancellations from buyers and suppliers. You shouldn't be here, I said, fumbling with my keys. Mother went too far. His voice was quiet. I came to fix things. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Fix things? Like you fixed them when she stole my designs? Or when she destroyed my reputation? I didn't know about the letter. He stepped closer. About your grandfather's conditions. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know either. The key finally slid home. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Your mother won. Game over. It doesn't have to be. He caught the door before I could close it. We could still make this work. Get married. Fulfill the conditions. You'd get your inheritance and Mother would. Would what?
Accept me?
Stop trying to destroy everything I've built. She's just protecting the family name. The words hit like a slap. I stepped back, really looking at him. This man I'd thought I loved, who'd never once chosen me over his mother's expectations. You still don't get it, do you? I whispered. This was never about the money or the inheritance. It was about proving I could succeed on my own terms. But you don't have to. Why can't you just what? Be the perfect Aldridge wife? Give up my dreams? Become another trophy in your mother's collection? His silence was answer enough. Get out, Cass. I said get out. I started throwing his things into boxes. The expensive watch he'd left on my dresser, designer clothes that had slowly migrated into my closet, photos of us at charity events where I'd tried so hard to fit in. What are you doing? He grabbed my arm. I yanked away. Exactly what I should have done months ago. Choosing myself. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. Finally, I shoved a box into his chest. Your mother didn't just try to destroy my business, Ben. She tried to destroy who I am. And you let her. I tried to protect you. By staying silent, by watching her tear me down. My voice cracked. That's not protection. That's cowardice. The word hung between us like a blade. Take your things and go, I said quietly. Go back to your perfect family and your perfect life. I'm done trying to fit into it. This is crazy. You're throwing away everything.
No.
I pulled out my phone, showing him the email I'd received that morning. I'm choosing everything. Felix just confirmed 3 major retailers want to carry my designs. The real ones, not the copies your mother helped steal. His face paled. But the scandal actually helped. Turns out people love an underdog story, especially when there's proof of corporate theft. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I met his eyes. Your mother taught me well, Ben. Sometimes you have to be willing to burn it all down to build something better. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. Mother was right about you, he said finally. You never belonged in our world. No, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. I belonged in something better. I just forgot that for a while. After he left, I sat in my empty apartment, looking at the chaos of boxes and memories. My phone buzzed, a text from Felix. Ready to show them what real success looks like? I thought about my grandfather's letter, about Victoria's smug certainty, about Ben's weakness. Then I thought about my mother's strength, Felix's faith in me, and my own forgotten dreams. Time to write my own story, I texted back. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming exactly who they said you couldn't be. And I was just getting started. 1 year to the day after finding my grandfather's letter, I stood in his study again. The room felt different now, lighter somehow, as if the weight of expectations had finally lifted. Ready? Mom asked, holding up an envelope from my grandfather's lawyer. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. My collection had launched at Fashion Week, earning critical acclaim and major retail contracts. Meanwhile, the Aldridge empire had stumbled after evidence of their design theft went public. Ben had resigned in disgrace, and Victoria's social standing had crumbled. I hadn't planned any of it. Sometimes karma writes better revenge stories than we ever could. Open it, Felix urged from a spot by the window. He'd become more than a mentor. He was family now. The letter inside wasn't what I expected. My dearest Cassidy, if you're reading this, you've completed your challenge, though perhaps not in the way I originally intended. The marriage clause was never meant to be revealed. It was Victoria Aldridge who added that page, using her connections to alter my wishes after my death. But you found your own path anyway, just as I knew you would. Your inheritance isn't just money, Cassidy. It's the truth about your strength. Sometimes we need to lose everything to discover what we're truly worth. The Harper fortune is yours, but you've already claimed something far more valuable, your independence. With pride, grandfather. I looked up at Mom, who was smiling through tears. He knew, she said softly. He knew Victoria would try to manipulate the situation. That's why he left the original letter with me. She pulled out another envelope, weathered and sealed. Inside was the real second page, no marriage clause, just a simple message. Trust yourself. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because you needed to choose your path without knowing, just like I did when I left your father. The parallel hit me hard. Mom had walked away from wealth and security too, choosing independence over a gilded cage. Felix cleared his throat. Speaking of choices, there's something else you should know. He handed me a newspaper. This is running tomorrow. The headline made my breath catch. Aldridge Corp CEO steps down amid scandal. Victoria Aldridge admits to years of corporate espionage. She confessed. I whispered. Not out of guilt, Felix said. Ben threatened to expose everything if she didn't step down. Apparently, he finally found his spine. Too late, I murmured, but without bitterness. That chapter was closed. My phone buzzed, a message from Ben. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I didn't reply. Some answers are better left unspoken. So what now? Mom asked, watching me carefully. I walked to my grandfather's desk, running my fingers over the worn wood where he'd built his own empire.
Now?
I build something new. Something that's purely mine. Already ahead of you. Felix grinned, pulling out another folder. 3 international retailers want exclusive collections. And that fashion institute you mentioned? The board loves the idea of sponsoring scholarships for young designers. I smiled, thinking of other dreamers like me, fighting for their chance. You know, Mom said, your grandfather always said success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. He was right about that too. I picked up his old nameplate, then set it down again. But sometimes proving yourself right means walking away from what others think you should want. Felix raised an eyebrow. Even with the inheritance? Especially with it. Money's just a tool. The real inheritance was learning to trust myself. As we left the study, I took one last look around. The room no longer felt like a museum of expectations. It was just a room where one story had ended and another had begun. My phone buzzed again. Victoria's number. I declined the call without hesitation. Some people never change. But that's their burden to bear, not mine. I had my own legacy to build now, and it had nothing to do with revenge or proving my worth to others. It was simply about being true to myself. Sometimes that's the greatest victory of all.
I never expected my life to change because of a three-legged German shepherd. But that's exactly what happened on the day Anson Whitaker walked into our clinic carrying 90 pounds of injured dog in his arms. My name is Lila, and I've been a veterinary nurse at Riverside Animal Hospital for the past 5 years. That Tuesday started like any other: coffee stains on my scrubs, a waiting room full of anxious pet parents, and the familiar antiseptic smell that never quite leaves your nose. Then he burst through the door. "Please, someone help. I found her on the side of the road," he called out, his voice steady despite the strain of carrying such a large dog. The shepherd's matted fur was caked with mud, and blood trickled from her rear leg. I rushed forward, already grabbing a gurney. "Over here. Put her down gently." Our eyes met briefly as we transferred the dog, and something flickered in my chest that I chose to ignore. There were more important things to focus on. "She's lost a lot of blood," I said, checking the dog's gums. "Dr. Morris, we need you in exam room 1, stat." The next hour was a blur of activity. The dog, whom Anson had started calling Hope, had been hit by a car. Her back leg was beyond saving, but the rest of her was strong. While Dr. Morris worked, I found myself stealing glances at Anson. He stayed the whole time, his expensive suit getting progressively more wrinkled as he paced the waiting room. "She's going to make it," I told him afterward. "But she'll need somewhere to recover." "I'll take her," he said without hesitation. "I have plenty of space at my house. Though I might need some guidance." He smiled, and that same flutter returned to my chest. That's how I ended up giving my phone number to Anson Whitaker, supposedly just for post-operative care questions. I didn't know then that his mother, Meredith, was watching from her parked Mercedes across the street, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the steering wheel. Over the next few weeks, Anson's medical questions evolved into coffee dates and long walks with Hope, who was adapting remarkably well to life on 3 legs. He was different from anyone I'd ever met, genuine in a way that made his wealth seem almost incidental. Almost. It wasn't until the charity gala at the Whitaker Foundation that reality crashed in. I'd agreed to attend as Anson's date, wearing a borrowed dress that cost more than my monthly rent. That's when I overheard them, Meredith Whitaker and her friend, in the powder room, their voices carrying over the marble walls. "Really, Meredith, a veterinary nurse? I thought you had higher hopes for Anson than some girl who cleans up after animals for a living." "Don't worry," Meredith's voice was silk over steel. "These little diversions never last. The Whitakers have standards to maintain. We can't have outsiders thinking they can simply marry their way into proper society." My hands froze in the middle of washing them. Through the mirror, I caught Meredith's reflection as she adjusted her pearl necklace, her eyes meeting mine with calculated precision. She'd known I was there the whole time. I left the bathroom on shaking legs, my mind racing. Anson found me moments later, his face bright with excitement. "There you are. Come on, I want you to meet my grandmother Eleanor. She's the only one in this family whose opinion I actually care about." As he led me through the crowd, I couldn't stop thinking about Meredith's words. But more than that, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a simple clash of social classes. I had no idea then just how right I was, or that Hope wouldn't be the only one learning to stand strong on fewer legs than she started with. Meeting Eleanor Whitaker was nothing like I expected. While Meredith's words still echoed in my head, the family matriarch took one look at me and broke into a warm smile that reached her eyes. "So you're the one who helped save Hope," she said, reaching for my hands. "Anson hasn't stopped talking about you." The Whitaker Mansion's dining room could have swallowed my entire apartment whole. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow shadows across the mahogany table where we sat for what Anson had promised would be just a casual family dinner. Nothing about the Whitakers was casual. Lila works at Riverside Animal Hospital, Anson said proudly, squeezing my hand under the table. She's actually the one who taught me everything about caring for Hope. A veterinary nurse, Meredith cut in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. How? Nurturing. Though I imagine the pay must be challenging, especially in this economy. I felt Anson tense beside me. Mother. I'm actually quite comfortable, I replied, matching her tone. There's something rewarding about work that makes a difference. Eleanor's eyes sparkled with interest. Indeed. I've always believed that true worth isn't measured by a bank account. Douglas, remember when you started as an intern at the company? Douglas Whitaker, Anson's father, looked up from his phone. Different times, Mother. The world expects more now. The world, Meredith added, sipping her wine, has standards. Speaking of which, Anson, the Prescott's daughter Caroline, is back from Europe. She's taking over their foundation's charitable division. That's nice, Anson replied flatly. I'm sure she and her trust fund will be very happy together. Tension in the room thickened. A maid appeared silently to clear our plates, and I noticed how Meredith barely acknowledged her existence. But Eleanor thanked her by name, Maria, and asked about her son's college applications. Lila, Eleanor said suddenly, would you help me fetch the dessert? Maria can take a break. In the kitchen, Eleanor's posture changed. My daughter-in-law means well, but she forgets where she came from sometimes. We all start somewhere. She handed me a crystal serving dish. Don't let her intimidate you, dear. I see how Anson looks at you. Before I could respond, we heard raised voices from the dining room. This isn't about Caroline, Anson was saying. This is about you trying to control my life like always. I'm trying to protect you, Meredith shot back. You have responsibilities, expectations. The only expectation I care about is being happy, Mother. Lila makes me happy. We returned to find Meredith standing, her hands pressed flat against the table. You've known her for what, 2 months? This infatuation will pass. Like yours did with Father? Anson's words cut through the air like a knife. The room went deadly quiet. Douglas finally looked up, his face dark. That's enough. I set down the dessert with shaking hands. I should go. Lila, wait! Anson started to follow me, but Eleanor caught his arm. Let her breathe, dear. Sometimes space is the kindest gift we can give. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with messages from Anson. But it was the last one that made me pull over. I'm sorry about tonight, but I want you to know I've never been more sure about anyone in my life. Meet me tomorrow at the clinic? Hope needs her checkup and I need to see you. I sat there, staring at my phone, when another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. Dear Lila, this is Eleanor. I saved your number from Anson's phone. There's something you should know about Meredith. Coffee tomorrow? Some stories are better told in person. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Whatever Eleanor knew, it could change everything. The question was, did I want it to? I thought about Meredith's smug smile, about Anson's defense of our relationship, about Eleanor's knowing looks. Maybe it was time to learn exactly what kind of family I was dealing with. I typed back, name the place and time. Eleanor chose a small cafe far from the Whitakers' usual haunts for our meeting. When I arrived, she was already there, looking less like the family matriarch and more like someone's favorite grandmother in her casual sweater and pearls. Hope trotted beside me, her 3-legged gait now confident and sure. Before we begin, Eleanor said, sliding a manila envelope across the table, you should know that showing you these could cause quite a stir in our family. Inside were photographs, old ones, their edges worn. A young woman in a waitress uniform stood outside a diner, her smile bright and determined. Took me a moment to recognize Meredith. Joe's Diner, 1985, Eleanor explained. That's where Douglas first met her. She was putting herself through community college, working double shifts. My coffee grew cold as Eleanor told me the story. How Meredith had grown up in a trailer park. How she'd reinvented herself after marrying Douglas, methodically erasing every trace of her past. How she'd even changed her accent. The society pages called it a Cinderella story, Eleanor said. But Meredith, she never stopped being afraid someone would discover her secret. She built walls around herself, around this family. And now she's terrified of history repeating itself, I finished, the realization hitting me hard. But why tell me this? Because you need to understand what you're dealing with. Meredith isn't just fighting you, she's fighting her own reflection. My phone buzzed. A text from Anson. Where are you? Mom's here at the clinic. Go, Eleanor said, reading my expression. But remember, sometimes the cruelest people are the ones most afraid of their own shadows. I rushed to the clinic, Hope keeping pace beside me. Through the window, I could see Meredith in her designer suit, speaking to my coworker Zoe. My stomach dropped. There you are. Zoe caught me at the door. Mrs. Whitaker's been asking about your employment history, and your family background, and your credit score. She what? I pushed through to find Meredith examining our medication storage with a critical eye. Ah, Lila. I was just discussing some concerns about the clinic's operations with your supervisor. Seems there might be some irregularities that the board should review. The threat was clear. She could damage not just my relationship with Anson, but my career too. Interesting timing, I said, keeping my voice steady. Especially since our last audit was perfect. But then you'd know all about reinventing yourself, wouldn't you? Meredith's perfectly composed face flickered. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Joe's Diner ring any bells? Color drained from her face. For a moment, I saw that waitress from the photograph, young, scared, desperate to belong. Then her walls slammed back up. Whatever you think you know. I know enough, I cut in. But here's the difference between us, Meredith. I'm not ashamed of where I came from. And I'm not afraid of where I'm going. You have no idea what it takes to survive in this world, she hissed. No, you have no idea what real survival looks like, I gestured to Hope, who sat watching us with wise eyes. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about adapting and moving forward, scars and all. Anson chose that moment to walk in. He looked between us, sensing the tension. Everything okay? Your mother was just leaving, I said, not breaking eye contact with Meredith. Unless there's something else she'd like to share? The threat hung in the air between us. Meredith's hand trembled slightly as she grabbed her purse. We'll continue this discussion later, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. After she left, Anson pulled me close. What was that about? I watched through the window as Meredith got into her Mercedes, her shoulders shaking slightly. The photographs felt heavy in my bag, a weapon I wasn't sure I wanted to use. Just two survivors sizing each other up, I said finally. But I think the real fight's just beginning. The manila envelope sat on my coffee table like a loaded gun. 3 days had passed since my confrontation with Meredith, and Anson had just texted to tell me he was coming over. We needed to talk, he said. Those words never meant anything good. Zoe perched on my couch, watching me pace. You could just show him the photos, she suggested. And this whole thing right now. And prove Meredith right? That I'm exactly the kind of person who'd destroy a family to get what I want. She's trying to destroy your career, Lila. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. A knock at the door made us both jump. Hope bounded over excitedly. She always knew when Anson was near. I opened the door to find him looking exhausted, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Hey, he said, then noticed Zoe. Oh, I didn't realize. I was just leaving. Zoe squeezed my arm as she passed. Remember what I said. Once we were alone, Anson collapsed onto the couch. Hope immediately put her head in his lap. Mother's called an emergency family meeting for tomorrow night. About us. What about us? She says she has concerns about your intentions. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She's been talking to people, digging into your past. My throat tightened. And she found out about your father's gambling debts. The bankruptcy when you were 16. The old shame rushed back. That was a lifetime ago. I know that. But she's convinced you're hiding something else. She's threatening to hire private investigators to expose whatever she finds to the clinic's board. Would you believe her? If she found something? Finally, he looked at me. Would there be anything to find? The envelope seemed to pulse with energy from its spot on the table. One move and I could end this, turn Meredith's weapon against her. But looking at Anson's face, I saw something that scared me more than Meredith's threats doubt. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. Meredith's planning something. Be careful at tomorrow's meeting. Remember, sometimes the best defense is letting your opponent defeat themselves. Lila. Anson's voice pulled me back. What aren't you telling me? I walked to the window, Hope following faithfully. Below, a black car idled across the street, one I'd seen before outside the clinic. Meredith wasn't just threatening investigations, she'd already started them. Your mother came from nothing, I said finally. Did you know that? What? No, she grew up in Connecticut, went to private schools. That's the story she tells. But it's not the truth. Anson stood up. What are you talking about? I turned to face him. If I told you I had proof that your mother's entire identity is a lie, would you want to see it? Or would you rather believe the comfortable story she's created? Are you threatening my mother? I'm asking if you want the truth, even if it hurts. He ran his hands through his hair. I don't know anymore. This whole situation. Maybe we should take a break. Give everyone time to calm down. The words hit like a physical blow. Hope whined, sensing my distress. If we step back now, she wins, I said. Is that what you want? I want peace in my family. His phone chimed. He checked it and his face hardened. I have to go. Mother needs me. After he left, I sat on the floor with Hope, her solid warmth anchoring me. The envelope still waited on the table, but now I saw it differently. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a test. Of me, of Anson, of what kind of person I wanted to be. I picked up my phone and texted Eleanor. I'll be at the meeting tomorrow. But we're doing this my way. Her response came quickly. Sometimes the greatest revenge is refusing to become what they expect you to be. I looked at Hope, who had overcome so much without losing her gentle spirit. Maybe that was the real lesson here. The Whitaker mansion felt different at night. Shadows crept across marble floors as I followed Maria, the housekeeper, to the study. She squeezed my hand before leaving, a small gesture of solidarity that meant everything. I'd left the envelope at home. Whatever happened tonight, it wouldn't be because I chose the nuclear option. The family was already assembled. Douglas behind his desk, Eleanor in her favorite armchair, Anson pacing by the window. Meredith stood when I entered, a folder in her hands and triumph in her eyes. Thank you for joining us, Lila. We have matters to discuss concerning the relationship with our family. Mother, please, Anson started. No, let her speak, I said, taking the only empty seat. I'm curious what else you've dug up about my past. Meredith's smile tightened. It's not just your past that concerns us. It's your present. Your sudden interest in our son, your convenient position at the clinic where wealthy clients bring their pets. She began laying out papers like playing cards. My father's bankruptcy documents, old eviction notices, a credit report. Each piece of my struggle laid bare like evidence of a crime. And now this, she said, producing a final document with flourish. An application for a small business loan submitted last week. How convenient that you'd seek to open your own veterinary practice just as your relationship with Anson grows serious. My heart stopped. I'd told no one about that application except Zoe. The loan officer had promised confidentiality. You're monitoring my financial records? The realization made me sick. We're protecting our family's interests, Douglas interjected, finally looking up from his phone. By breaking the law. Eleanor's voice cut through the tension. Douglas, tell me you didn't authorize this. It doesn't matter how we obtained the information, Meredith pressed on. What matters is the pattern it reveals. A calculating young woman, using our son to elevate her station. Stop. Anson's voice was quiet but firm. Lila, is it true? The loan application? I met his eyes. Yes, 'cause I believe in building something of my own. Something no one can take away from me. How admirable, Meredith sneered. And I suppose my son's connection to several wealthy pet owners had nothing to do with your timing? That's enough. Eleanor stood, her frail frame somehow commanding the room. Meredith, you're so focused on protecting this family from outsiders that you can't see you're destroying it from within. Mother, please stay out of this, Douglas warned. No, I don't think I will. Eleanor moved to stand beside me. Lila, dear, would you like to tell them about the other document? The one you've been choosing not to show? Meredith's face flickered with uncertainty. I could, I said, watching Meredith carefully. But I don't think I need to. 'Cause this isn't about me, is it, Meredith? It's about you and what you're afraid I'll become. Or maybe what you're afraid I already am, a mirror. Color drained from Meredith's face. For a moment, I saw that young waitress again, desperate to belong. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered, but her hands were shaking. Grandmother. Anson looked between us, confusion evident. What's going on? Before anyone could respond, Douglas's phone rang. He answered, listened, then looked at me with something like respect. The loan application, he said. It's been approved. Not by any of our family's banks, but by a small credit union in Connecticut. He turned to Meredith. Your hometown, isn't it, dear? The silence that followed was deafening. Meredith gripped the edge of the desk, her carefully constructed world teetering on the brink. I think, Eleanor said gently, it's time we all told the truth. The whole truth. I stood up, my decision made. No, I think it's time I left. Some truths need to be told by the people who've lived them. As I walked out, Anson called after me. But I kept going, Hope's lessons about survival echoing in my mind. Sometimes moving forward means letting go of the need to win. Behind me, I heard Meredith begin to cry. 3 days after I walked out of the Whitaker mansion, Anson proposed. Not with a carefully planned speech or expensive dinner, but in the clinic parking lot. Rain soaking through our scrubs after treating an emergency case together. Should have been perfect. Instead, it felt like the beginning of the end. The engagement party at the Whitaker estate was Meredith's idea. One last chance, she'd said, her voice hollow, to do things properly. She hadn't spoken about that night in the study, and neither had I. The photos remained hidden in my apartment, a loaded gun I couldn't bring myself to fire. I should have known better. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and old money. Hope wasn't allowed inside. Not appropriate for such an occasion, Meredith had insisted. I felt her absence like a missing limb. You look uncomfortable, Eleanor observed, appearing beside me. Like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Aren't I always with this family? She squeezed my hand. Meredith's been unusually quiet these past few days. Be careful. I spotted Anson across the room, surrounded by his parents' friends. Caught my eye and smiled, but didn't come over. We'd barely spoken since the proposal, both pretending everything was fine. Then Meredith clinked her glass for attention. I'd like to propose a toast, she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. To new beginnings. To truth. To family. My stomach dropped. Eleanor gripped my arm. Many of you know how protective I am of my son, Meredith continued. How I've always wanted the best for him, which is why it pains me to do this. She nodded to Douglas, who pressed a button. The ballroom screens lit up with security camera footage me entering my apartment building late at night, with James Harrison, one of the clinic's wealthy clients. Taken last week, Meredith announced. And the week before that. Always late at night, always when Anson was away on business. The room erupted in whispers. I stood frozen, remembering those nights, the emergency calls about Harrison's sick dog, the late-night treatments, confidential discussions about investing in my future clinic. "Mother, stop this," Anson's voice cut through the chaos. But he wasn't looking at me. "The timing of her loan approval is interesting, isn't it?" Meredith pressed on. "Right after these meetings began." "It's not what you think," I started, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "What I think," Meredith's voice turned sharp, "is that you've been playing us all, using my son while securing your future with one of our oldest family friends." "James Harrison is my business partner," I finally managed. "He's investing in my clinic because he believes in my work. That's all. Is that why you kept these meetings secret? Why you never mentioned them to Anson?" I looked at Anson, saw the doubt in his eyes. "I wanted to tell you, but after everything with your mother, I was afraid. Afraid we'd see the truth?" Meredith smiled. "Well, now everyone can see it." The room spun. I saw the judgment in their faces, heard the whispers. Even Douglas looked away. "Enough." Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip. "Meredith, you've gone too far." But Meredith wasn't finished. "I have the contract here signed last week. A very generous investment with some interesting conditions about future client relationships." She was twisting everything, turning my dream into something dirty. And Anson still hadn't moved. I walked to the center of the room, facing Meredith directly. "You want to talk about secret meetings? Secret contracts? Should we discuss Joe's diner, Meredith? Should we talk about where you really came from?" The room went deadly quiet. Meredith's face drained of color. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Show them. Prove exactly what kind of person you are." I felt the weight of every eye in the room. Saw Eleanor's sad smile, Douglas's calculating gaze, Anson's confusion. In that moment, I understood I could win this battle, but I'd lose everything that mattered. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, I heard Anson call my name, but I didn't stop. Some victories aren't worth the cost of winning. I found Meredith in the garden, exactly where Eleanor said she'd be. She stood among her precious roses, still wearing her party dress, though the perfectly styled hair had come undone. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands. "Come to finish what you started," she asked without turning around. "To expose me to everyone who's left? Most of them already left after your performance." I moved closer, watching her shoulders tense. "But that's not why I'm here." She laughed, brittle and sharp. "Then why? To gloat? To tell me how I've become everything I feared? To give you these?" I held out the envelope. "They belong to you." Finally, she turned. Her mascara had left dark trails down her cheeks, but her spine was still steel straight. "I don't want your pity." "Good, because this isn't pity. This is me choosing to be better than what you tried to make me." A noise from the terrace made us both turn. Anson stood there, watching. Behind him, Eleanor and Douglas emerged from the shadows. They must have followed me. "What's going on?" Anson asked, his voice uncertain. Meredith's hand shook as she took the envelope. "Nothing that concerns." "Everything," Eleanor cut in. "Everything that's happened concerns all of us." "Infinite, Meredith." "It's time." The photos spilled out, scattering across the garden path. Young Meredith in her waitress uniform. The diner. The trailer park. A life she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself it never existed. "I worked every shift I could get," Meredith whispered, picking up one photo. Saved every penny. Changed my accent, my clothes, my entire life. And then you met Father, Anson said, realization dawning in his eyes. I loved him, Meredith's voice cracked. But I loved what he represented more. Security. Respect. Never having to feel ashamed again. So you became someone else entirely, I said quietly. And when you saw me with Anson, I saw myself. Everything I'd run from. Everything I'd fought to forget. She looked at me directly for the first time. I couldn't let you do to him what I did to Douglas. What you did to me. Douglas stepped forward. Meredith, I fell in love with that waitress who worked double shifts and dreamed of something better. Not this performance you've been putting on for 30 years. You knew. Meredith's voice was barely a whisper. I've always known. I thought eventually you'd trust me enough to be yourself again. He picked up one of the photos. I miss her sometimes. Anson moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. All this time you were fighting your own reflection in Lila. But she's nothing like you, Mother. She never hid who she was. Even when you gave her every reason to be ashamed, she stood her ground. The meetings with James Harrison, I added softly, were about creating something of my own. Not because I wanted to escape who I am, but because I'm proud of who I've become. Despite everything, Meredith sank onto a garden bench, the photos scattered around her like fallen leaves. I don't know how to be that person anymore. The one who wasn't afraid. Then maybe, Eleanor said, her voice gentle but firm, it's time to learn again. Starting with the truth about why you really fought so hard against Lila. Because she's everything I couldn't be, Meredith whispered. Strong enough to be herself no matter what anyone thinks. The garden fell silent except for the distant sound of departing cars. The last of the party guests, leaving with fresh gossip about the Whitaker family drama. What happens now? Anson asked, his thumb tracing circles on my hand. I looked at Meredith, saw the scared young woman beneath the polished exterior. Now we all decide who we want to be. Not who we think we should be. Meredith stood slowly, gathering the photos with trembling hands. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, I agreed. But maybe we both deserve a chance to start over. The night air shifted, carrying the scent of roses and possibility. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in refusing to let them destroy themselves. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of my new clinic, watching Meredith struggle with Hope's leash. The German Shepherd had taken to her weekly therapy sessions with surprising enthusiasm, though I suspected it had more to do with the treats Meredith smuggled in her designer handbag than any medical necessity. She's favoring her right side again, Meredith noted, her once perfect manicure now slightly chipped. She'd started volunteering at the clinic 3 months ago, much to everyone's surprise, especially her own. Dogs are good at reading people, I said, checking Hope's gait. They know when someone's trying to change. The bell chimed as Eleanor entered, followed by Douglas. They'd become regular fixtures here, Eleanor with her business advice and Douglas with his unexpected talent for calming anxious pets. The contractor finally finished the renovation plans, Douglas announced, spreading blueprints across the reception desk. The old diner's structure is solid. It just needs updating. Meredith's hands stilled on Hope's fur. Joe's Diner? That's where you're opening the second location. It seemed fitting, I replied, watching her carefully. A place for new beginnings. She was quiet for a moment then. The coffee was terrible there, but the pie was something special. I remember, Douglas said softly. The door chimed again. Anson walked in, still in his surgical scrubs from the hospital where he'd started volunteering. He'd discovered a passion for veterinary medicine that surprised everyone except me. Ready for lunch? He asked, kissing my cheek. Mom, you're coming too, right? That little Italian place you used to work at? Meredith tensed, then relaxed. I haven't been there in 30 years. I wonder if Marco still makes those garlic knots. Only one way to find out, Eleanor said, her eyes twinkling. As they headed out, I stayed behind to finish some paperwork. Through the window, I watched them walk together, Meredith and Douglas hand in hand, Eleanor sharing some story that made them all laugh, Hope trotting alongside like she'd always belonged. Zoe appeared beside me, sorting through patient files. Still can't believe how things turned out, huh? Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you expect, I said, touching my engagement ring, a simple band Anson had reproposed with. This time in the clinic where we'd met, Hope as our witness. Speaking of unexpected, Zoe hesitated. Meredith asked me about taking some vet tech classes at the community college. Said something about it never being too late to be who you might have been. I smiled. Remembering the photos now proudly displayed in the Whitaker home, young Meredith in her waitress uniform next to recent ones of family dinners and clinic events. No more hiding, no more shame. The mail arrived, bringing the usual mix of bills and business correspondence. But one envelope stood out, cream-colored, expensive paper. Inside was an invitation to the annual Whitaker Foundation Gala. But this year was different. The cause? A scholarship program for veterinary students from underprivileged backgrounds. The location? The newly renovated Joe's Diner. A note fell out, written in Meredith's elegant hand. Some debts can never be repaid, but perhaps they can be passed forward. Thank you for showing me that the person I was running from was the person I needed to become again. I tucked the invitation away, thinking about revenge and redemption, about the ways we hurt people by hurting ourselves, about how sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone find their way back to themselves. Hope barked outside, impatient for me to join the others for lunch. Through the window, I saw Meredith laugh, a real laugh, unguarded and free. She caught my eye and nodded, a gesture of understanding between two women who had learned that the strongest foundations are built on truth, not pretense. I grabbed my coat and headed out. After all, I had a family waiting for me, and they were exactly the kind of imperfect I'd always needed them to be.
The letter arrived on an ordinary Tuesday, wedged between a pizza flyer and an overdue electric bill. I almost missed it, a yellowed envelope with my mother's unmistakable handwriting. My hands trembled as I read the return address. Margaret Lawson, 1992. My name is Emery, and until that moment, I thought I knew everything about how my parents died. I stood in my kitchen, coffee forgotten on the counter, staring at this ghost from 30 years ago. The seal was intact, the paper aged but pristine, as if it had been waiting all these years to find me. How had it surfaced now? Where had it been? This can't be real, I whispered, running my finger along the edge of the envelope. My mother died when I was 5, along with my father, in what everyone called a tragic accident. A car crash on a rainy night, at least, that's what Uncle Gideon had always told me. The phone rang, making me jump. Lydia's name flashed on the screen. Are you coming to book club tonight? Sarah's making those amazing lemon bars again. My voice caught. Something came up. A letter from my mom. Silence crackled over the line. Your mom? But that's impossible. It's dated 1992, 3 months before they died. I finally worked up the courage to open it, the paper crackling beneath my fingers. Lydia, I need to read this. I'll call you back. I hung up before she could respond and unfolded the letter with shaking hands. The words blurred before my eyes, then snapped into focus. My dearest Emery, if you're reading this, something has happened to your father and me. Robert discovered something at work, something dangerous. He's been gathering evidence, but Uncle Gideon knows. We're planning to leave town tonight, but if we don't make it, the truth is in the library. Look for the book your father always read to you. You'll know which one. Be careful who you trust. Even family can betray you. All my love, Mom. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the tile floor. My quiet life as a small-town librarian suddenly felt like a facade, hiding something darker underneath. The accident that killed my parents, was it really an accident? My phone buzzed again. This time it was Uncle Gideon. Emery? I just heard the most curious thing from Jasper. Something's about a letter. My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone except Lydia, and that was barely 5 minutes ago. How did Jasper know? I don't know what you're talking about, I lied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I'm actually heading to work. Ah, yes, the library. Following in your father's footsteps, aren't you? His laugh felt hollow. Why don't you come by the house this weekend? Cora's been asking about you. I'll think about it, I said, already knowing I would go, not for the invitation but for answers. Wonderful. Oh, and Emery? Be careful with old papers. They have a way of falling apart when handled carelessly. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, then at the letter in my hand. The threat in his words was clear as day. My mother's warning echoed in my mind. Be careful who you trust. Even family can betray you. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my pocket. The book my father always read to me, The Secret Garden. Of course. He read it so many times I could recite entire passages from memory. Tomorrow, I would start searching the library's archives. But tonight, I needed to make copies of this letter and hide them somewhere safe. Because one thing was crystal clear. Uncle Gideon knew something about my parents' death, and he didn't want me digging into the past. Too bad for him. I've spent my whole life around books, and if there's one thing I know how to do, it's research. Whatever truth my father discovered, whatever secret cost my parents their lives, I'm going to find it. And God help anyone who tries to stop me. Uncle Gideon's estate looked exactly as I remembered, a sprawling Victorian mansion that seemed to judge everyone who approached it. I sat in my car, watching shadows move behind the curtained windows, my mother's letter burning a hole in my jacket pocket. The front door opened before I could knock. Aunt Cora stood there, perfectly coiffed as always, but something about her smile seemed strained. Emery, darling, what a lovely surprise. She pulled me into a hug that lasted a beat too long. As she drew back, she whispered, Be careful what you say. The walls have ears. Before I could process that warning, Jasper appeared in the hallway. My cousin looked more like his father every year, same sharp features, same calculating eyes. Well, if it isn't our favorite librarian. Finally decided to grace us with your presence. Jasper, I nodded, keeping my voice neutral. How's the family business? Thriving. Unlike some career choices I could mention. He smirked, then turned toward his father's study. Dad's waiting for you. I followed him down the familiar hallway, noting how the family photos on the walls still excluded my parents. It was as if they'd been erased from the family history, except for one small picture I'd never noticed before. My father, standing with Uncle Gideon outside what looked like an office building, both smiling. But my father's smile didn't reach his eyes. Uncle Gideon sat behind his massive desk, reading glasses perched on his nose. He didn't look up when I entered. Sit down, Emery. Jasper, give us a moment. Jasper hesitated, then left, closing the door with unnecessary force. So, Uncle Gideon said, finally meeting my eyes. Let's discuss this letter of yours. I never said I had a letter. He laughed, but it wasn't a warm sound. Come now, we both know better. Your mother was always protective, always worried about things she didn't understand. Like what got her killed? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His expression hardened. Careful, Emery. Some questions are better left unasked. Your parents made choices that put them on a dangerous path. I tried to warn them. Warn them about what? He opened a drawer and pulled out a familiar book, The Secret Garden. My breath caught. Looking for this? Jasper found it in the library archives yesterday. Interesting notes your father left in the margins. My hands clenched into fists. That belongs to me. Does it? Everything in that library belongs to the Price Family Foundation. Your father was merely an employee. He tapped the book's cover, though he did leave some fascinating breadcrumbs. Tell me, what exactly are you hoping to find? The truth. The truth? He stood, walking to the window. The truth is that your father was a good man who got involved in things beyond his understanding. The truth is that your mother enabled his paranoia instead of helping him see reason. The truth dear niece, is that sometimes accidents happen for a reason. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. I stood up, hands shaking. Are you admitting something, Uncle Gideon? He turned, his expression suddenly gentle. I'm trying to protect you, just as I've always done. Drop this investigation. Focus on your quiet life. Some doors are better left closed. A knock interrupted us. Aunt Cora entered with a tea tray, her hands trembling slightly. I thought you both might need refreshments. As she set down the tray, she knocked over a cup. Tea spilled across some papers on Gideon's desk, and in the chaos of cleaning up, she pressed something into my hand, a small key. Clumsy me, she said, but her eyes met mine meaningfully. Emery, dear, would you help me in the kitchen? She was just leaving, Gideon said firmly. I clutched the key in my pocket, mind racing. Actually, I could use some tea. My nerves are shot after our enlightening conversation. Gideon's jaw tightened, but he couldn't object without seeming suspicious. As I followed Aunt Cora out, I heard him on the phone. Yes, she's here. No, she's not backing down. We may need to accelerate our timeline. In the kitchen, Cora gripped my arm. Your father's old office.
Tonight.
But be careful, Jasper's been watching the building. Why are you helping me? She glanced toward the study, lowering her voice. Because some accidents aren't accidents at all, and some secrets are worth dying for. I left the house with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. Whatever my father had discovered, it was big enough to kill for. And someone in my family had already proven they were willing to do just that. The key Aunt Cora gave me felt impossibly heavy in my hand as I stood outside my father's old office building at midnight. The street was empty, but my skin prickled with the sensation of being watched. I'd parked 3 blocks away, taking a circuitous route to avoid any tale Jasper might have set up. My phone buzzed Lydia again.
Her 5th call today.
I silenced it, remembering her strange behavior at the library earlier. You need to stop digging, she'd said, grabbing my arm as I was researching old company records. Some people, they're worried about what you might find. Some people? Or Uncle Gideon? She'd looked away then, her face pale. Just trust me, please. But I couldn't stop now. Not after finding my father's notes in the secret garden, fragments about offshore accounts, missing funds, and something called Project Phoenix. The lock clicked open smoothly, despite years of disuse. Inside, dust covered everything except, strangely, the desk. Someone had been here recently. I pulled out my flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Family photos still hung on the walls. Mom and Dad at their wedding, me on my 5th birthday, Uncle Gideon and Dad breaking ground on some new project. But there, behind the desk, something caught my eye. A section of wallpaper that didn't quite match. My hands trembled as I peeled it back, revealing a small wall safe. The key Cora gave me fit perfectly. Inside was a single leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age. My father's handwriting filled every page, growing increasingly frantic toward the end. Gideon's cooking the books.
Million missing.
But it's worse than that. The development projects, they're not just real estate deals. Someone's paying to hide something. G says I'm paranoid, but I've seen the shipping manifests. God help me. What have I gotten involved in? The floor creaked behind me. I was wondering when you'd find it. Lydia's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, looking both guilty and determined. I'm sorry, Em. I really am. How long have you been working for them? Since college. Your uncle. He paid for my mother's cancer treatment. I owed him. She stepped closer. But I never wanted this. I never wanted anyone to die. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Your parents, it wasn't supposed to happen that way. Gideon just wanted the evidence gone. But Jasper. She swallowed hard. He took things into his own hands. The journal felt like it was burning through my fingers. Jasper killed my parents? He tampered with their brakes. Said it had to look like an accident. Tears streamed down her face. I've been carrying this secret for so long. When you started investigating, Gideon ordered me to stop you. But I can't. I can't keep lying. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lydia's eyes widened in panic. He followed me. You need to go.
Now.
I shoved the journal into my bag, but before I could move, Jasper appeared in the doorway. His face was eerily calm. Hello, cousin. Finding anything interesting? Stay back, I warned, backing toward the window. He laughed, low and dangerous. You know, I always resented how Uncle Robert treated you like his precious little princess, while treating me like an outsider. Even though I was the one who understood what this family needed. What this family needed was the truth. I spat. The truth. He stepped closer. The truth is that your father was weak. He would have destroyed everything my father built. I did what needed to be done. By killing my parents? By protecting our legacy. He lunged forward, but Lydia grabbed his arm. Run, she screamed. I didn't hesitate. I crashed through the fire escape door, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Behind me, I heard a struggle, then Lydia's scream cut short. My car was too far. I ran instead toward the main street, the journal clutched to my chest, my father's last words echoing in my mind. Now I knew the truth, or at least part of it, but that truth had already cost 3 lives. As I disappeared into the night, one thought burned in my mind. Jasper might have killed my parents, but Uncle Gideon had given him the motive. And I finally had proof of both their crimes. The question was, would I live long enough to use it? I hadn't slept in 36 hours. My father's journal lay open on my kitchen table, its revelations keeping me awake along with endless cups of coffee. The morning news droned in the background until a familiar name caught my attention. Local businesswoman Lydia Monroe was found unconscious outside her office building early this morning. Police suspect. I knocked over my coffee, reaching for the remote. Lydia's photo filled the screen, her professional headshot smiling back at me while the anchor described her suspicious fall. My hands shook as I dialed the hospital. I'm sorry, but Miss Monroe isn't accepting visitors, the nurse said. Please, I'm family. I lied, desperation creeping into my voice. Her family's already here. Her mother and Mr. Price have been with her since admission. My blood ran cold. Uncle Gideon was there already. Of course he was. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 247. Riverside Complex. Code 1992. Come alone. C. Aunt Cora. But could I trust her? After Lydia's accident, every shadow looked like a threat. The storage facility was deserted when I arrived. Unit 247 stood at the end of a long row, security camera conspicuously dark above it. I punched in the code, my birth year, I realized, and the door rolled up with a grinding sound. Inside, stacked boxes filled most of the space, each one labeled with project names I recognized from Dad's journal. But it was the wall of photographs that made my heart stop. Surveillance photos. Dozens of them. My parents outside their house. Dad at his office. Mom at the grocery store. Me at the library, taken just last week. Years of surveillance, meticulously documented. Shocking, isn't it? I spun around. Jasper stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. How long have you been following me? Following you? Oh, cousin, you really don't understand. He stepped inside, glancing at the photos. This was never about you. This was about legacy. About who deserves to carry the Price name forward. By murdering my parents? By protecting the family business. Your father was going to expose everything, the money laundering, the offshore accounts, all of it. Dad couldn't see it, but I knew what had to be done. And Lydia? His face hardened. She made her choice. Just like you're making yours. I backed away, bumping into the boxes. You won't get away with this. I have the journal, the evidence. You have nothing. He slammed his hand against the wall. That journal? Those photos? They're copies. The originals are safe. Insurance, you might say, against people who think they can destroy what we've built. A shadow moved behind him. Aunt Cora appeared, holding something metallic. That's enough, Jasper. He laughed. Really, Mom? The concerned Aunt act? Tell her the truth. Tell her who took those photos. My world tilted. Aunt Cora? She wouldn't meet my eyes. I did what I had to do to protect my son, my family. Your family? The betrayal felt like physical pain. You watched them die. You helped cover it up. I made a choice, she whispered. Just like you need to make one now. Walk away, Emery.
Please.
Before anyone else gets hurt. I looked between them, aunt and cousin, mother and son, and saw the truth. There was no justice to be found here. Only survival. The journal goes public tomorrow, I said, forcing steel into my voice. Everything. The surveillance, the money, the murders. Unless. Unless what? Jasper sneered. Unless you confess. Both of you. Clear my parents' names. Let the truth come out. Or what? You'll destroy the family? I thought of Lydia in her hospital bed, of my parents' crashed car, of years of lies and manipulation. The family's already destroyed. I'm just deciding who goes down with it. The security light flickered outside, casting strange shadows across Jasper's face. For a moment, he looked terrifyingly like Uncle Gideon. You know, he said softly, you really are your father's daughter. He reached into his jacket, and I realized too late what that meant. The last thing I saw was Aunt Cora turning away as Jasper raised his arm. Some choices, it seems, run in the family. I woke up to the steady beep of hospital monitors and Uncle Gideon sitting beside my bed. My head throbbed where Jasper had struck me, but that pain was nothing compared to the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. You're lucky the security guard found you, Gideon said quietly. Though I suspect luck had nothing to do with it. My throat felt like sandpaper. Where's Jasper?
Gone.
Along with Cora. He handed me a glass of water, his hands trembling slightly. They emptied the storage unit before police arrived. Quite thorough, actually. Just like they were 27 years ago. I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. You knew? About my parents. I suspected, but suspicion without proof. He trailed off, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your father came to me the night before he died. Said he had evidence of something terrible. I told him to wait, to let me handle it internally. The next morning, they were dead. He nodded, pulling something from his jacket, a flash drive. This was in your father's desk. The original copies of everything. I've kept it all these years, waiting. For what? For someone brave enough to finish what Robert started. He placed the drive on my bedside table. Or foolish enough. The door opened and a nurse entered, followed by Detective Sarah Chin. I recognized her from the local news. Miss Lawson, she said, notebook ready. Feel up to answering some questions about your attack.
Gideon stood.
My niece needs rest. Your niece needs justice, Chin countered. Just like Lydia Monroe. Interesting timing, don't you think? 2 attacks, both connected to your family business. I caught Gideon's subtle flinch at Lydia's name. Something clicked. How is Lydia? I asked. Stable, Chin replied. She's been asking for you. Says she has something important to tell you about Project Phoenix. Gideon's face went pale. I should call my lawyer. You should, Chin agreed. We found some interesting documents in Miss Monroe's possession. Something about offshore accounts. My uncle's composure cracked. Emery, whatever you're thinking of doing. You knew. I cut him off. All these years, you knew what they did to my parents. You protected them. I protected you. He stepped closer, voice dropping. If I hadn't taken you in, given you a normal life, you have ended up like them. Dead in a ditch somewhere. Or maybe I'd have grown up knowing the truth. That my cousin murdered my parents while my aunt took pictures, and my uncle covered it all up. Chen's pen stopped moving. Is that a statement, Miss Lawson? The flash drive felt heavy in my hand. One piece of evidence that could destroy everything, my family, my life, any chance of peace. Actually, I said, meeting Gideon's desperate gaze. It's a confession. But not just mine. I turned to Chen. I'd like to make a deal. I have evidence of decades of corporate fraud, murder, and conspiracy. But I want immunity for one person. Who? Lydia Monroe. She tried to warn me, try to stop this. She deserves a chance to make things right. Chen nodded slowly. And your family? I thought of Jasper's sneer, Cora's betrayal, Gideon's lies. Family. What a poisonous word that had become. They made their choices, I said, gripping the flash drive tighter. Now I'm making mine. Gideon moved toward the door, but Chen's partners were already there, blocking his exit. You'll regret this, he warned. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Like my parents? My voice cracked. No more secrets, Uncle Gideon. No more lies. It's time everyone knew exactly what kind of family the Prices really are. As they led him away, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear in my uncle's eyes. Not for himself, but for what was coming. Because he knew, just as I did, that this was only the beginning. The truth about Project Phoenix was still out there, waiting to burn everything down. And this time, I'd make sure no one escaped the flames. The police interview room felt colder than my hospital room. Detective Chen spread photos across the table, surveillance shots from the storage unit, crime scene photos from my parents' accident, and new images of Jasper and Cora boarding a private plane.
They're gone, Chen said.
Left the country this morning. But that's not our biggest problem. She slid another photo forward. Uncle Gideon, slumped over in his holding cell. He had a cyanide capsule. Old school but effective. The note he left. She hesitated. It was addressed to you. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. Emery, Project Phoenix was your father's idea. Ask Lydia about the children. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from the truth.
Gee.
The children? My head spun. I need to see Lydia. She's missing. Chen's words hit like physical blows. Disappeared from her hospital room an hour ago. Security cameras show her leaving voluntarily. That's impossible. She could barely walk. Unless she was never really injured. Chun leaned forward. We found this in her apartment. She pushed forward a photograph I'd seen before. My parents with Uncle Gideon outside an office building. But now I noticed something in the background. A young Lydia, holding her mother's hand. Her mother didn't have cancer, Chen continued. She worked for your father's research division. Project Phoenix wasn't about money laundering. It was about genetic experimentation. On children. The room tilted. I remembered Lydia's words at the storage unit. Some choices run in the family. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Library basement. Midnight. Come alone if you want to understand why they had to die. It's a trap, Chen warned. Of course it is. I stood up. But it's also my only chance to end this. I'll send backup.
No.
Lydia will see them coming. She's been playing us all along. I touched the scar on my head where Jasper had struck me. Besides, I'm done hiding from my family's sins. Chun grabbed my arm. This isn't just about your family anymore. We found records, dozens of children, experiments spanning decades. Your parents weren't trying to expose it. They were trying to perfect it. The truth felt like acid in my veins. Everything I thought I knew about my parents, about myself, crumbled. Then why kill them? Because they wanted to stop. Your mother's letter, the one that started all this? It wasn't a warning. It was a confession. I left the station in a daze, the pieces finally falling into place. Lydia wasn't just my friend. She was one of the children. A successful experiment. And now she was finishing what my parents had started. The library stood dark against the night sky. My sanctuary, now a monument to decades of horror. As I approached the basement door, my phone buzzed one last time. Like mother, like daughter. Some experiments run in the family. Check your blood work from the hospital. My hands trembled as I pulled up my medical records. There it was, buried in the DNA analysis. Genetic markers identical to those in Project Phoenix's research files. I wasn't just investigating my family's crimes. I was living proof of them. The basement door creaked open. Lydia stood in the shadows, looking nothing like the injured woman from the hospital.
Hello, sister, she said.
Ready to embrace your inheritance? Behind her, I glimpsed rows of medical equipment, computers, and something that looked disturbingly like holding cells. The Price family legacy, she continued, isn't about money or power. It's about evolution. Your parents understood that. And deep down, so do you. She held out her hand. offering a choice: walk away and live with the truth, or step forward and become part of it. In that moment, I understood why my mother wrote that letter. Not to expose the truth, but to warn me about what I might become. The basement door closed behind me with a final, heavy click. Some choices, it seems, were made for us long before we were born. The library basement hummed with the sound of ancient machinery. Lydia led me past rows of medical equipment, each station marked with familiar names, children I'd grown up with in our small town. "They're all like us," Lydia said, her voice eerily calm. "Experiments. Successes. The ones who survived anyway." A door slammed behind us. Jasper stepped out of the shadows, looking nothing like the cousin I remembered. His movements were too fluid, too precise. "Welcome home, little sister," he sneered. "Or should I say, Subject 23? "This ends tonight," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Detective Chun has everything. The files, the evidence." "You mean these files?" Another figure emerged, Aunt Cora, holding a familiar flash drive. Poor Gideon. Always keeping insurance, never realizing I had my own copies. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "You were the one running Project Phoenix all along. Someone had to continue their work," Cora said, moving to a computer terminal. "Your parents were brilliant but weak. They wanted to stop when they saw what they'd created. But you can't stop evolution." Screens flickered to life around us, showing surveillance footage of children training, fighting, changing. I recognized myself in some videos, too young to remember. "Why show me this now?" "Because it's time to choose," Lydia said. "Your parents' death wasn't just about silencing them. It was about triggering your transformation. Trauma activates the genetic modifications."
Just like it did for me.
For all of us. My head throbbed as memories surfaced: childhood accidents, convenient injuries, carefully orchestrated losses. They'd been conditioning me my entire life. "I won't help you continue this. You already are." Jasper pressed a button, and more screens lit up. Live feeds of the town. "Every book you've handled in that library, every child you've read to, we've been collecting DNA samples, continuing the research. You're the perfect carrier." Horror rose in my throat. "Those children will become the next generation," Cora finished. "Better, stronger, thanks to you."
No.
I backed away, but Jasper moved with inhuman speed, blocking my escape. "You can't fight genetics, cousin. I felt it when I hit you at the storage unit, your abilities activating. Just like they did for me when I killed your parents." Something snapped inside me. The rage I'd been suppressing exploded outward. Jasper flew across the room, crashing into equipment. I hadn't touched him. "That's it," Lydia whispered. "Accept what you are." But in that moment of clarity, I saw what my parents must have seen: the monster their research had created, the legacy they died trying to stop. I reached for the main power terminal, letting the energy build inside me. "You forgot something about evolution." "What's that?" Cora demanded, reaching for an alarm. "Sometimes species go extinct." I released everything, all the rage, pain, and power they'd built into me. Electricity arced through the room, destroying 30 years of research in seconds. Jasper lunged, but this time I was ready. We crashed together with superhuman force, years of hidden abilities finally unleashed. "This is for my parents," I growled, feeling bones crack beneath my hands. Lydia screamed as servers exploded around us. Cora ran for the emergency exit, but Detective Chun was already there, backed by a tactical team. "It's over," I said, watching my childhood friend collapse amid the ruins of our shared nightmare. "We're not continuing the cycle." "You can't erase what you are," Lydia gasped as officers surrounded her. "No," I agreed, feeling the power pulse through my veins. "But I can choose what I become." Outside, dawn broke over the library. Chun approached with a tablet. Security cameras caught everything. "The world will know the truth now." I watched hazmat teams enter the basement, thinking of all the children who'd never know what was done to them, what they might become. "Not everything," I said, feeling the last traces of Project Phoenix burn away. Some secrets should stay buried. I turned toward the sunrise, leaving my family's legacy in ashes behind me. Sometimes the only way to honor your parents' memory is to finish what they started, even if that means destroying everything they built. Some choices, after all, are worth burning for. 6 months after the library basement showdown, I stood in front of the renovated Price estate. The sign read Lawson Memorial Library and Community Center, my parents' names finally restored to their rightful place. Detective Chin approached, holding a familiar-looking envelope. Found this in Cora's safety deposit box. It's addressed to you, dated the day before your parents died. My father's handwriting. My hands trembled as I read. Dearest Emery, if you're reading this, we succeeded in destroying our research. Project Phoenix was our greatest mistake, but you were our greatest achievement. Not because of the experiments, but because you taught us the difference between advancing humanity and preserving our humanity. The power in your blood isn't a curse or a gift. It's a choice. Choose wisely. Love, Dad. The official investigation is closing, Chin said. Jasper's in custody, Cora's cooperating, and Lydia. She hesitated. Still no sign of her? Chun shook her head. The other affected children have been notified. Most chose to never know the details. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Inside the library, children played in the reading nook where I'd once hidden from my own truth. A young girl looked up from the secret garden, her eyes briefly flashing with unfamiliar intensity that made my heart skip. You can't save everyone, Chin said softly. No, I agreed. But I can give them a safe place to discover who they are. I touched the wall where we'd installed a memorial plaque. Beneath my parents' names was their favorite quote, "Knowledge is power, but wisdom is knowing when not to use it." The contractor approached with final paperwork. Just need your signature, Miss Lawson. Though there is one odd thing, the basement plans don't match any records we can find. The basement's been sealed, I said firmly. Some books shouldn't be opened. That evening, I sat in my father's old office, now my private reading room. A hidden panel in his desk had revealed one final surprise, a journal documenting every child in Project Phoenix, including genetic markers to watch for. I could continue monitoring them, protecting them from what they might become. Or I could let the past stay buried, giving them the normal life my parents wanted for me. The choice weighed heavy as I felt the familiar surge of power in my veins. Outside, a shadow moved too quickly across the lawn, Lydia, watching from a distance. Our eyes met through the window. She nodded once, a gesture of respect or warning, before disappearing into the night. I opened my father's journal one last time, then placed it in the fireplace. As the pages curled and blackened, I thought about choices, the ones our parents make for us, and the ones we make for ourselves. The library would be my legacy now. Not a place of secrets and experiments, but of knowledge freely given and wisdom carefully earned. The children of Project Phoenix would write their own stories here, unbound by the sins of their creators. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Some phoenixes rise. Others learn to stop burning. Choose wisely, sister. I deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow, children would fill these halls, some carrying secrets in their blood they'd never know about. And I would be their librarian, their protector, their living reminder that every story deserves a chance to be rewritten. The power thrummed beneath my skin, not demanding to be used, but waiting to be understood. Like the books surrounding me, it was neither good nor evil, just a tool, waiting for its reader to decide its purpose. I locked up for the night, leaving the past sealed in the basement below and the future wide open above. Sometimes the truest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. And sometimes, the most powerful choice is knowing which stories to leave untold. The end. Or perhaps just another beginning.
I stared at my phone screen, reading Nathan's text message for the 15th time. Getting married next week? Thought you should know. Just like that. 8 words to crush what remained of my world. My name is Amelia, and 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Now I was sitting in the break room of Marshall's department store, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white, while my ex-husband casually announced his engagement to another woman. "You okay there? You look like you're about to snap that phone in half." Jenna dropped into the chair across from me, unwrapping her sandwich. She took one look at my face and set it down. "What happened?" I slid the phone across the table. She read the message, and something shifted in her expression. Not just sympathy, recognition. "Nathan's getting married," I said, my voice flat. "To someone named Vanessa Crawford." Jenna's sandwich fell from her hands. "Vanessa Crawford, dark hair, green eyes, always wearing expensive jewelry. You know her?" "Oh, honey," Jenna whispered. "She's the reason my brother lost everything 2 years ago. Marriage scam. She's done it at least 3 times that I know of." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as my mind processed this information. 3 times. Marriage scam. The pieces started clicking together. Nathan's sudden distance 6 months ago, the missing money from our joint account, the rushed divorce. "I need to warn him," I said, reaching for my phone. Jenna's hand shot out, stopping me. "He won't believe you. Trust me, we tried warning her last victim. Men like that, they only learn the hard way." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nathan. "By the way, we're using the beach house for the ceremony. Hope that's cool." The beach house. My grandmother's beach house. The one I'd inherited and foolishly put in both our names because I believed in forever. "I think I'm going to throw up," I managed. "No," Jenna said, her voice hardening. "You're going to get even." I looked up at her, surprised by the steel in her tone. She pulled out her own phone, scrolling through old photos until she found what she was looking for. There she was, Vanessa Crawford, draped over some man who wasn't Nathan, both of them wearing wedding rings. The timestamp showed it was from 18 months ago. "That's her with husband number 3, Jenna explained, before she cleaned out his bank account and disappeared. My hand stopped shaking. The nausea was replaced by something else, something cold and clarifying. "Tell me everything you know about her. You sure you want to go down this road?" Jenna asked, but she was already pulling up more photos, more evidence. "He's using my grandmother's house to marry her," I said. "The house she left me because she wanted it to be filled with family and love. So, yes, I'm sure." Jenna nodded slowly. "Okay then. But we do this smart. We do this right." She glanced at her watch. "My shift ends in an hour. Meet me at Murphy's bar after work. I'll bring everything I have on her." I stood up, smoothing down my store uniform. The break room suddenly felt too small, too confined. "I should call Marcus," I said, thinking of my brother, the lawyer. "He'll want to know about this." "Good idea. You'll need him." Jenna's eyes met mine. "Just remember, once you start this, there's no going back." I picked up my phone, composing a new message to Nathan. "Congratulations. Hope you got a prenup." Then I deleted it without sending. Some responses were better served cold, planned, and perfect. The break room door swung shut behind me as I headed back to the sales floor, already mapping out the first steps of what needed to be done. Nathan thought he could take everything from me twice. He was about to learn otherwise. Marcus's law office always smelled like leather and coffee. I sat across from his massive desk, watching him scroll through the photos Jenna had sent me. His expression darkened with each swipe of his finger. "This is definitely the same woman," he said, placing his phone down with the careful precision I recognized from childhood, the way he'd set down a chess piece before declaring checkmate. "And you're sure about the beach house?" Nathan's text was pretty clear. I traced the edge of the leather chair arm. "He's using Grandma Rose's house for his wedding to a known con artist. The house we specifically advised you not to put in joint names." Marcus's tone wasn't accusatory, but I flinched anyway. "Can you help me stop them?" "Legally, no. The divorce agreement gives him equal right to use it." He leaned back, studying me. "But that's not why you're really here, is it?" Before I could answer, the office door burst open. Our mother swept in, designer handbags swinging. "There you are. I've been calling both of you all morning." "Mother, I'm with a client," Marcus said smoothly. "I'm your sister," I reminded him. "Still billable hours." He winked, then turned to our mother. "What's wrong?" "Nathan called." She dropped into the chair beside me. "He wants us all at the wedding. Says it wouldn't feel right without his former in-laws there. Isn't that sweet?" My stomach lurched. You're not going. Of course we are. Henry's already confirmed. Nathan's like a son to us. A son who cheated on your daughter and married someone else 6 months later, Marcus pointed out. Mother waved her hand dismissively. People make mistakes. Besides, this Vanessa seems lovely. She's already invited me to join their country club committee. I exchanged looks with Marcus. Of course, Vanessa would target our parents. They were exactly the kind of wealthy, socially connected marks she preferred. Mom, I started, but Marcus cut me off with a slight headshake. Mother, why don't you let me review the country club paperwork before you sign anything? He suggested. Just standard procedure. Always the lawyer, she sighed, standing. Amelia, darling, please tell me you're not going to make this difficult. Nathan's happy. You should be too. After she left, I slumped in my chair. She's going to get hurt. Not if we move quickly. Marcus pulled up another document on his computer. Jenna's brother wasn't Vanessa's only victim. I found 3 more cases, different names, but same MO. She gets close to wealthy families, builds trust, then disappears with everything she can grab. We have to show Nathan. He won't believe it. Men like him, their egos won't let them see they're being played. Marcus typed something else. But I might have another angle. The beach house's deed has an interesting clause. Grandma Rose stipulated it must be used for family gatherings in good faith. What does that mean? It means, he smiled, that if someone tries to use it for fraudulent purposes, ownership reverts solely to her blood descendants. Hope flickered. So, if we can prove Vanessa's planning to scam Nathan, the house becomes yours entirely. He held up a warning finger. But we'd need solid evidence, and getting it might require you to play nice. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Need to discuss wedding details. Dinner tomorrow? Marcus read it over my shoulder. Perfect opportunity. To do what? To make him think you're accepting this, that you're moving on. He met my eyes. Think you can handle that? I thought of our grandmother, how she'd loved that beach house, how she'd wanted it to stay in the family. I thought of Jenna's brother, broken and bankrupted. I thought of my mother, already falling for Vanessa's act. I can handle anything, I said, typing my reply to Nathan. Dinner sounds great. So happy for you both. Marcus nodded approvingly. Just remember, the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a smile. I gathered my things, pausing at the door. What if we're wrong? What if he really loves her? Then he's still the man who cheated on my sister and gave away her inheritance to a stranger. Marcus's voice hardened. Either way, he needs to learn actions have consequences. I stepped out into the hallway, my phone already buzzing with Nathan's response about dinner details. Time to see if those acting classes in college would finally pay off. Murphy's bar hadn't changed since college. Same sticky floors, same dim lighting, same corner booth where Jenna waited with a manila folder and 2 whiskey sours. I slid in across from her, still wearing my work uniform. You're not going to like what I found, she said, pushing the folder toward me. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Vanessa with different men, different rings, different names. But one photo made my hands shake. Nathan and Vanessa outside my grandmother's beach house, dated 3 months before our divorce. They knew each other, I whispered, while we were still married. There's more. Jenna pulled out a document. Remember how Nathan insisted on handling the house maintenance last year? Look who he hired for the appraisal. The company name jumped out, Crawford and Associates Real Estate Valuations. Vanessa's family business, Jenna explained. They deliberately undervalued the property before your divorce. Nathan knew exactly what he was doing. The whiskey burned going down. How did you get all this? My brother kept everything from when she took him for $250,000. Police wouldn't touch it. Too much, he said, she said. She paused. But there's something else you need to see. She pulled up a video on her phone. The footage was grainy, security camera quality, showing Vanessa in an intense conversation with someone in a parking lot. The timestamp was from last week. Is that... I leaned closer. Your father? Yeah. Jenna's voice was gentle. They've been meeting regularly. I think she's already working him for investment money. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan about tomorrow's dinner. The screen blurred as tears threatened to fall. I can't do this, I said. I can't sit across from them and pretend. Yes, you can, Jenna grabbed my hand. Because if you don't, your parents will lose everything, just like my brother did. The bar door opened, letting in a blast of cold air and a familiar figure. Marcus strode toward us, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder. Got your message, he said to Jenna, then looked at me. How bad? Dad's involved, I managed. Marcus swore under his breath, scanning the documents. This changes things. We need to move faster. The dinner tomorrow, Jenna suggested. It's perfect. Get them talking about the wedding plans, the house? No, Marcus's voice was sharp. Too risky. If they suspect we're onto them, then what? I stood up, anger finally breaking through. We wait while they steal our parents blind? While they turn our family's home into another crime scene? Sit down, Marcus hissed, glancing around. You're not thinking clearly. Neither is Dad, apparently, but that's not stopping him from... Your father, a new voice cut in, is trying to protect you. We all turned. There stood Henry, my father, looking older than I'd ever seen him. He slid into the booth beside me. How long have you been here? I asked. Long enough? He picked up one of the photos. I've been meeting with Vanessa because I'm gathering evidence. Have been since Nathan first introduced her to us. The silence that followed was deafening. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked. Because you're my daughter. I wanted to spare you this. He spread the photos across the table. But it seems you found your way here anyway. Does Mom know? Your mother sees the best in everyone. It's why I fell in love with her. It's also why I have to protect her. He looked at each of us. So, what's our next move? Marcus leaned forward. We have dinner tomorrow. We let them think they're winning. And then we show them what happens when you mess with our family. I finished. My phone buzzed again. Nathan sending the restaurant details. I looked at the message, then at my father's determined face, at Marcus's calculating expression, at Jenna's fierce loyalty. I'll wear the blue dress, I said, the one Nathan always hated. For the first time that night, everyone smiled. Tomorrow's dinner would be a performance, but not the one Nathan and Vanessa were expecting. They thought they were the players, but they were about to become the played. The blue dress felt like armor as I walked into Salvatore's. Nathan was already there, holding court at our old favorite table, Vanessa draped across his arm like a designer scarf. My father's intel had been right. She was wearing the tennis bracelet from her last mark. Amelia! Nathan stood, arms open for a hug I deftly avoided by pretending to adjust my chair. You look... different. Divorce agrees with me. I smiled, watching his confidence flicker. Vanessa leaned forward, all warmth and concern. Nathan's told me so much about you. I hope we can be friends. Of course. I touched the recording device Marcus had disguised as a pendant. I'd love to hear how you two met. Their stories didn't match. Nathan claimed they'd bumped into each other at a coffee shop 3 months ago. Vanessa said it was at a charity gala 4 months ago. Small inconsistencies, but telling ones. The beach house is perfect for the ceremony, Vanessa gushed, though it needs some updating. That old wiring? Wiring? I set down my wine glass. It was completely rewired last year. The inspection says otherwise. Nathan pulled out his phone. Actually, I wanted to discuss that. The renovation costs are your problem now. I cut him off, remembering Marcus's warning not to engage about the house yet. Vanessa's hand slipped under the table, probably reaching for Nathan's knee. Her tell, according to Jenna's notes, she was about to make a play. Actually, she said, we were hoping you might want to sell your share. Start fresh. Funny you should mention that. I pulled out my own phone, pulling up the photos Dad had taken. I was at the beach house yesterday. The wiring's fine, but I did find something interesting in the garage. Nathan's face changed. He knew what was in that garage, boxes of financial records my grandmother had kept, including details of every property transaction in the family for the past 30 years. We should order, he said quickly. The veal here is excellent. It's fascinating reading, I continued. Especially the part about Crawford and Associates. Your family's company has quite a history, Vanessa. Though I noticed they operated under different names before. The warmth in her eyes turned arctic. I don't discuss business at dinner. No, that's not what Timothy Chen said, or Robert Walsh, or my father. Nathan's fork clattered against his plate. Your father? Oh, didn't she tell you? They've been having the most interesting meetings. I turned to Vanessa. Dad says hi, by the way. He particularly enjoyed your pitch about the offshore investments. Vanessa stood abruptly. Powder room, she muttered, grabbing her purse. Don't bother checking your phone, I called after her. The signal's already been blocked. Once she was gone, Nathan leaned forward. What are you doing? Protecting my family, something you used to care about. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. You needed money after that failed real estate deal last year. The one you hid from me. Vanessa offered a solution, didn't she? Undervalue the beach house, split the property in the divorce, then sell it for its real worth later. It's not that simple. It never is with con artists. I stood up. You have 24 hours to call off the wedding and walk away. After that, everything I have goes to the FBI. You're bluffing. Try me. I dropped a USB drive on the table. Consider it a wedding present. Copies of everything. The fake appraisals, the wire transfers, the previous marriages. Even that interesting offshore account in your name. His face went pale. How did you? You're not the only one who can play games, Nathan. I gathered my things. 24 hours. Oh, and when Vanessa gets back, tell her Timothy Chen says the statute of limitations isn't up yet. I walked out of Salvatore's feeling lighter than I had in months. In my purse, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Dad's contact at the FBI is ready. Sure you want to do this? I thought about Nathan's face when I mentioned the offshore account. An account I'd completely invented. His reaction told me everything I needed to know. There were more secrets, deeper betrayals. I'm sure, I typed back. Time to let the storm break. 3 a.m, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Nathan's number flashed on the screen for the 12th time. I let it go to voicemail, like the others, and returned to sorting through the stack of papers spread across my bedroom floor. The doorbell rang. Then again, and again. I opened my apartment door to find Vanessa, mascara streaked down her face, designer purse clutched like a shield. We need to talk. She pushed past me into the apartment. Whatever you think you know. I know enough. I left the door open. Get out. You don't understand. She dropped onto my couch. Nathan's not who you think he is. He's not who I thought he was either. Something in her voice made me pause. What do you mean? Check your email, now. I pulled up my phone, found a new message from an anonymous address. The attachments showed financial records, not just Nathan's offshore accounts, but transfers to shell companies, dates stretching back years before our marriage. He's been running his own game, Vanessa said quietly. Using women like me to access wealthy families, then disappearing with their investments. I was supposed to be his next mark. My hands shook. You expect me to believe you're the victim here? I expect you to look at the evidence. She pulled out more documents. Your father isn't investigating me. Nathan's been feeding him false information, setting him up for a massive investment fraud. The beach house? It's already been sold. The paperwork goes through tomorrow morning. The room spun. I grabbed the wall for support. That's not possible. The deed was transferred last week. Nathan forged your signature. She met my eyes. Check the county records if you don't believe me. My phone buzzed again. Marcus this time. Turn on the news, his text read. The TV flickered to life, showing breaking news. Local investment manager arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The manager's face filled the screen. My father's oldest friend and business partner. Nathan's cleaning house, Vanessa said. Removing anyone who might expose him, your father's next? Why are you telling me this? Because I made a mistake thinking I could beat him at his own game. She stood up. And because your brother's FBI contact, he works for Nathan. My phone rang again, my mother this time. Dad's gone, she sobbed when I answered. He left a note about meeting Nathan, but his phone's dead and... Call Marcus, I cut in. Tell him to meet us at the beach house, now. After my mother hung up, I turned to Vanessa. If you're lying, I'm not. She pulled out her phone, showing me surveillance photos of Nathan with other women, other families. I've been gathering evidence for months, but he's always one step ahead. Why should I trust you? Because right now, I'm the only one who knows where he's taking your father. She headed for the door. Coming? I grabbed my keys and the USB drive containing everything we'd gathered. The revenge I'd planned suddenly felt small, childish compared to what we were facing. He'll be expecting us, I said as we rushed down the stairs. Good, Vanessa's voice hardened. Let him. I didn't spend 3 years tracking him just to let him disappear again. In the parking lot, another text from Marcus. Dad's car found abandoned at Marina, police en route. The boat, Vanessa and I said simultaneously. The one registered to Crawford and Associates, she added. He uses it to move money offshore. We jumped into my car. As I pulled onto the street, my phone rang one last time. Nathan's voice filled the speaker. You should have taken the deal at dinner, he said. Now your father gets to learn what happens when people don't mind their own business. The line went dead. I pressed the accelerator, memories flooding back. Nathan's mysterious business trips, the missing documents, the way he'd insisted on handling all our finances. How long? I asked Vanessa. How long have you really been after him? Since he killed my sister. She stared straight ahead. 5 years ago, same setup. She figured it out too late. The marina was 20 minutes away. We had one chance to stop this, to save my father, to end Nathan's game once and for all. I just hoped we weren't already too late. The marina's security lights cast long shadows across the water. Nathan's boat, the sweet revenge. How had I missed the irony? Bobbed gently at the end of the pier. No lights, no movement, just the quiet lapping of waves. There, Vanessa pointed to a figure moving near the stern. That's not Nathan. Marcus, I whispered, recognizing my brother's silhouette. He turned, face ghostly in the dim light. Stay back, he called out. He's got Dad below deck. I took a step forward. Metal clicked behind me. That's far enough. Nathan's voice, but different now. Colder, more precise. The Nathan I thought I knew had always been a performance. Drop the phone, Amelia. My phone clattered onto the dock. In my peripheral vision, Vanessa had disappeared. You too, Marcus, Nathan said. Though I have to admit, you played your part beautifully. Almost had me convinced you were really helping her. Marcus didn't move. It's over, Nathan. The real FBI is already what? Following false leads across 3 states? Nathan laughed. You really think I didn't have contingencies? Your sister's not the only one who knows how to plan revenge. Where's my father? My voice shook. Safe, for now. He moved closer, gun steady. You know what's funny? I actually liked your family, made it harder to do what needed to be done, but business is business. Was any of it real? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The beach house was. His voice softened slightly. I really did love that place. Your grandmother had excellent taste. The new owners got a bargain. Movement caught my eye. Vanessa, creeping along the adjacent dock. Nathan saw my glance and spun around. The gun went off. Marcus tackled Nathan from behind. They crashed onto the dock, the gun skittering away. I lunged for it, but Nathan's foot caught my ankle. I slammed down hard, wood splintering my palms. Amelia! My father's voice, weak but alive from below deck. The fuel line. Another shot cracked through the night. Marcus stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. Nathan scrambled for the gun. You want revenge? He snarled, aiming at me. Here's what revenge gets you. Vanessa appeared behind him, a flare gun raised. Remember Claire? She asked. Nathan's eyes widened in recognition. The flare lit up the night, missing Nathan but striking the boat's hull. Flames erupted instantly. Dad! I screamed, running toward the cabin. Smoke poured from below deck. The fuel line's cut, my father called, stronger now. He rigged it to... The explosion knocked me backward. Heat seared my face as the boat's cabin erupted in flames. Through the fire, I saw Nathan running, Vanessa in pursuit. Get Dad! Marcus shouted, pressing his hand against his bleeding shoulder. I dove into the water, fighting through burning debris. The cabin door was locked. Through the window, I saw my father struggling with ropes, binding his hands. Something heavy hit the water beside me. A fire extinguisher. Marcus, thinking clearer than I was. I grabbed it, smashed the window, and pulled my father through just as the second explosion rocked the boat. We surfaced gasping. Marcus helped drag us onto the dock as emergency vehicles screamed in the distance. "Nathan," I coughed. "Gone," Marcus grimaced. "Vanessa, too." My father sat up slowly, his wrists raw from the ropes. "The documents," he wheezed. "In my jacket pocket. Everything we need to prove." But the jacket was gone, burned away with the boat and all our evidence. 5 years of Vanessa's investigation, all my carefully gathered proof, up in flames. He planned this, I realized. All of it. The dinner, the threats, everything to get us here with all the evidence in one place. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Sweet revenge indeed. Give your sister my love." I stared at the burning wreckage of the boat, of our case against him. We had nothing left. No proof, no leverage, not even the beach house. Just a wounded brother, a traumatized father, and the bitter taste of failure. "He won," I whispered. "No." My father's voice was steel. "He just showed us exactly who he is, and now we know what we're really fighting." The marina burned behind us, lighting up the night with all our destroyed hopes. But in the flames, I saw something else too. The truth about revenge, about justice, about what it really means to win. 3 days after the marina fire, Jenna called. "Turn on Channel 7, now." Nathan stood at a podium outside the courthouse, playing the victim perfectly. As a victim of investment fraud myself, I'm cooperating fully with authorities to help other families recover their assets. The camera panned to show my father in handcuffs, being led to a police car. My doorbell rang. Vanessa stood there, bleeding from a cut above her eye. I found him. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the private airstrip where Nathan kept his real escape plan. A chartered plane ready for a one-way flight to a non-extradition country. "He'll be here within the hour," Vanessa said, checking her phone. "Your brother's text bought us time, making Nathan think the FBI was closing in on the west side of town." "And the real FBI? Still working through the false leads." She pulled out a small recorder. "But this might change that." The recording played, Nathan's voice discussing the marina setup, the fraudulent investments, everything, including Claire's murder. "How did you hit and mic during our last conversation, before he figured out who I really was?" She touched her bruised face. He wasn't happy about that revelation. Movement at the hangar entrance caught our attention. Nathan emerged carrying a briefcase. "That's it," Vanessa whispered. "All the account information, the real documents, everything he took from everyone." I stepped out of the shadows. "Going somewhere?" Nathan froze, then smiled. That same charming smile that had once made me fall in love. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "It's over, Nathan." "Is it? Your father's being charged with fraud. Marcus is under investigation. The beach house is gone. Seems like I'm the only one walking away clean." "Not quite." Vanessa emerged, holding up the recorder. "Remember our last conversation?" His smile faltered. "You really think anyone will believe?" "They'll believe the offshore account records," I cut in. "The ones Mom's friend at the bank pulled this morning. They'll believe the witness testimony from your other victims, and they'll definitely believe this." I held up my phone, showing the live stream currently broadcasting to the FBI's tip line. Nathan lunged for the briefcase. Vanessa moved faster, but he was ready. The gun appeared in his hand. "You know what your problem is, Amelia," he said, backing toward the plane. "You always thought revenge was about justice. It's not. It's about power, about winning." "No," I replied. "It's about truth." The hangar lights flooded on. FBI agents emerged from behind planes, weapons raised. Marcus stepped forward, his injured arm in a sling. "Actually," he said, "it's about patience, and having a sister who keeps really good financial records." Nathan's gun swung toward Marcus. I tackled him from behind, sending us both crashing into the concrete. The briefcase burst open, papers scattering. "You really think this changes anything?" Nathan spat blood. "I'll still walk away, I always do." "Not this time." Vanessa picked up the recorder she'd deliberately dropped earlier, the one he'd been focused on. "While you were watching this, the real evidence was already being uploaded. Everything, Nathan. Every account, every victim, every lie." "Including Claire?" he asked quietly. "Especially Claire." As the FBI led him away, Nathan looked back at me. For a moment, I saw something crack in his perfect facade. Fear, maybe, or regret. "I did love you," he said. "In the beginning?" "I know. That's what made it work." The briefcase's contents were already being cataloged as evidence. 5 years of schemes, of destroyed lives, of carefully planned revenge, all of it ending not with a dramatic showdown, but with paperwork and procedures. "Was it worth it?" Marcus asked, watching Nathan disappear into a police car. I thought about the beach house, about all we'd lost, about the difference between revenge and justice. "Ask me tomorrow," I said. Vanessa touched her sister's photo on her phone screen. "Tomorrow's good. Tomorrow's when the real work begins." The sun rose over the airstrip, painting everything in new light. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about finding the truth, even when that truth hurts more than the lies ever did. The beach house keys felt heavy in my palm. After Nathan's conviction, the property reversion clause had kicked in. Grandma Rose's final gift to me. Standing in the driveway, watching the sunset paint the waves orange, I almost expected to see Nathan's car pull up, his easy smile ready with another lie. Instead, it was Marcus who appeared, carrying a box of old files. "Last of the victim statements," he said. "Restitution hearings start next week." I unlocked the front door, breathing in the familiar scent of sea air and old wood. The furniture was still covered in sheets, like ghosts of a life I'd thought I wanted. "Mom's asking about visiting," Marcus said, setting down the box. "Dad, too, once the doctors clear him." "They can come whenever they're ready." I pulled off one sheet, revealing Grandma Rose's favorite armchair. "Though we might want to replace some things first." Speaking of replacing things, he handed me an envelope. "This came to my office this morning, from Nathan's attorney." Inside was a letter, Nathan's precise handwriting somehow smaller than I remembered. "I kept one truth from you. The night I met you wasn't random. I chose you because you were kind, because you believed in second chances. I thought that made you weak. I was wrong. It made you stronger than I could ever be. The house is yours. It always should have been." "And there's more," Marcus said quietly. "The offshore accounts we couldn't trace? He gave them up. Every victim gets their money back. Even Vanessa's sister's family. Why now? Maybe the same reason you're here instead of selling this place." He gestured around the room. "Some things matter more than winning." My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Claire would have liked you. Thank you for helping me find the truth, even if it wasn't the one I expected." I tucked the letter away, unopened. Some truths didn't need to be read to be understood. "Help me with these sheets?" I asked Marcus. We uncovered the furniture piece by piece, letting light back into rooms that had held too many shadows. In the study, I found one of Nathan's old notebooks, filled with calculations and marks against people who'd trusted him. "Should we keep any of this for evidence?" Marcus asked. I shook my head, carrying the notebook to the fireplace. "We have enough truth, some things we just need to let go." As the pages curled and blackened in the flames, I thought about revenge, how it had started as a simple desire to hurt Nathan back, but had become something else. Something that exposed not just his lies, but the complicated truths about justice, family, and forgiveness. "You know," Marcus said, watching the fire, "Grandma Rose used to say the house would tell us what it needed. Maybe it needed all of this, to clear out the old stories, make room for new ones." Through the window, I could see Jenna's car pulling up. She'd been helping coordinate support groups for Nathan's other victims, turning pain into purpose. "You really keeping the house?" Marcus asked. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how certain I felt. "But not as a monument to what happened, as a reminder of what matters more." He raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" I opened the front door, letting in the sound of waves and Jenna's laughter as she carried groceries up the walk. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the ocean, but here, in this moment, everything felt clear. "The truth," I said. "Even when it hurts, even when it's not the truth we wanted." Marcus nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. About revenge and justice, about family and forgiveness, about the fine line between protecting ourselves and punishing others. The storm would come, as storms always do. But this time, I wasn't afraid of what it might wash away. Some foundations run deeper than betrayal, stronger than revenge. I stepped onto the porch, leaving the door open behind me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt us. Sometimes it's about building something new from the ruins, something stronger than what was lost. The waves crashed against the shore, constant as truth, changing as forgiveness. I was ready for both. Oh,